January 23rd, 4 p.m. Let the minutes reflect that we have 4 members present. Mrs. Farley was unable to be here with us today. I'd like to ask Mr. McBride, if he would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have item 3. We have approval of agenda with adjustments. I'm going to make a motion that when we get to bills, there is a payment for Greg Angel, that we pull that out and it be handled separately. Also pull out RT Rogers and Safe and Sound, handle those separately as well. Okay, just RT Rogers. I figured I'd cover them both just in case I overlooked it. So we're going to pull out a bill to myself and to RT Rogers, handle those separately.
I'll second that.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we pull out a bill to myself and to RT Rogers, handle those separately. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that we will handle those bills separately. Are any?
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we approve the agenda with the mentioned adjustments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that the agenda has been approved with the mentioned adjustments. Item 4, we have our levy consideration. I will turn this over to you, Mr. Wardle, and to Mr. Hunter with Bowles Rice. Let you all proceed.
Well, just to let you know, if anybody's in the community wants to know what's going on, we have sheets back there for you guys to go over this. We have what the levy order that he'll be presenting in legal terms, and then there's a bright colored sheet over there that's in layman's terms to help people out. And then there's a white sheet over there that talks about each class, what class 1 through 4 means, also in layman's terms. So back there at that back table, if anybody wants a copy, they're yours. Roger, I will turn it over to you. You're the man of the hour.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and superintendent, staff, and members of the public. I'm Roger Hunter. I'm a public finance and school finance lawyer from Bowles Rice, and I've been before you before talking about this proposed excess levy that you all have put together for consideration tonight. And as the superintendent mentioned, there is the one-page summary that tries to, in more layman-friendly terms, explain what this does. But under West Virginia code, if a school board, county school board, wants to put together a proposed excess levy, it has to put it on a ballot, either in the primary or general election, and present it to the voters of the county. And that's what this order does primarily. It checks all the boxes that are required for information to be put in an order by the school board in order to make that proposed excess levy get on a ballot for, in this case, for the primary election in May. And so each of these numbered paragraphs is in there for a reason. And in simple terms, it's there to comply with requirements of West Virginia law, West Virginia code, in an order of a school board that wants to run an excess levy in an upcoming election. You are well within the time limit for doing so. And so let me just, without further ado, step into and briefly summarize this order that's in front of you. And let me say, as I begin that there are no bad questions. If the members of the board do have questions, interrupt me. And please feel free to chime in and ask, because there are no bad questions except the ones you have that don't ask. So please chime in. The introductory paragraph, of course, the heading calls for the election to be held on May 14th. The first paragraph kind of explains why you need to do this, that there's an important need for the school district that you believe need further funding, and this excess levy provides those additional funds for those important needs. That table that you see in paragraph 1 is really one of the most important parts of it, because it says to the world that these are the purposes for which we would raise additional funds through this excess levy if the voters approve it. And so that's kind of one key part. And there are 3 main categories there. And I would say that this excess levy, if the voters approve it in May, would take effect for the fiscal year next beginning, which is one beginning July 1, 2024. And it would cover 5 total fiscal years, beginning with that one as the first of 5. So the purposes here, table 1 says that these would be the average annual amounts. May be a little different from year to year, but on average, this would be the amount per year that we believe we would need to raise through this excess levy. And purpose number 1 is safety and security. We've all heard a lot on our TVs and other news outlets that you may go to for your news, and the public may go to for its news, that there have been a lot of school shootings across this country. Unfortunately, it's something that every school board across the country's had to deal with in terms of thinking this through and doing what they can, each school board out there, to try to make their students and staff and visitors when they're on campus as safe as possible. And so here you see that is the first purpose, and the dollar amount is approximate average annual amount for that purpose each year would be approximately $350,000. And you can see there that it would include school resource officers, probation officer, cybersecurity, and building security. And regrettably, not only have we had to read and see on the news about school shootings and that sort of problem out there, but there have been cyber attacks too, which threaten the privacy of students or staff, or cripple the system for a period of time until the problem can be resolved. And so that's an important aspect. And of course, building security. So those are the first category purposes: safety and security, the approximate average annual dollar amount, $350,000. The next important category purposes is student academic services and transportation. So these are all services for your students, including transportation. But you can see there some of the different categories, and I won't go through each one, but they're pretty straightforward. Support for the students through tutoring and so forth and interventions. Trying to avoid split classrooms. The community and schools programs, after school and summer school programs, work programs, career and technical, band and music competition, academic and athletic competitions. And you can see that adds up to an approximate average annual amount for those purposes of $652,712. Continuing on page 2, you see the third purpose, which is building and grounds, and that would include maintenance, playgrounds, and facilities, and that would have total approximately $500,000 to be raised from this excess levy for those purposes. And the bottom there gives the total just over $1,502,712 for the total to be needed for these purposes to be raised by this excess levy each year. Now, continuing on, the language underneath the table is important because it says that, it won't be exactly this dollar amount to the penny every year. It'll fluctuate a little bit from year to year, but over the life of the 5-year levy, you would expect that this would be the average amount spent for each of these 3 categories of purposes, totaling up to that dollar amount, $1,502,712. So if some, again, if you have any questions, just stop me. I'm going to proceed though, Mr. President, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Keep rolling here. Paragraph 2 says that, you know, sometimes it may happen that people don't take the discount on their property tax as much as you would think, or for whatever reason, you end up with a few more dollars than projected from your excess levy. Then paragraph 2 says that the board would be authorized to expend that surplus for the enrichment, supplementation, operation, and improvement of educational services in the county or facilities of the public schools in the county. Paragraph 3 says that over the 5-year period, the total amount that you would need to raise, propose to raise through this excess levy is the total. You just multiply that first amount by 5, but basically it's $7,513,560, which averages out to that total per year that we were just looking at. The language says that, you know, in reality, it's never quite exactly that amount, but that based on the needs of the school district from year to year, and subject to that provision of state code that's mentioned there, it may be that the amounts are a little bit under, or it may be that they're a little bit over in 1 year, but on average, you expect them to average out to those dollar amounts in that table per year. Now, if you can't spend, or you don't need to spend the whole amount in one fiscal year, sometimes that happens. Project may be started in April, it may not be finished by June 30th, so it spills over into next year. You can carry those dollars over and spend them on that purpose next year, in the next fiscal year, if that happens to you. And sometimes that does happen to a school board. Now, paragraph 4 is required by code. You have to spell out in your order the assessed valuations for each class of property. And I believe there was a handout that the superintendent alluded to that explains what these different classes of property are for. But most residential, where people live and their home, such would be in class 2. Those are the valuations in the county for each class, and they total up to what they total up to as of March, certified values of the assessor and the county officials that want those things. That's what they add up to. Now, section 5 gets down to the levy rates that would be required after you take into account the fact that some people will get the 2.5% discount by paying early, and some people, there may be some exonerations or delinquencies. When you factor that in, these are the rates that you would need to have the excess levy set at in order to generate, based on those valuations we just looked at, the amount of money you're proposing to raise. So you don't have class 1 really anymore. We used to, but we still have to put it in here. Class 2, 16.07 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. Class 3 and 4, $32.14 per $100 of assessed valuation. Now, I would make 2 comments here about this. One is we work with a lot of school boards all over the state of West Virginia, and the maximum excess levy rate allowed by law is considerably more than what you all are proposing here. This is actually approximately 35% of the maximum allowed by law under the West Virginia Code for an excess levy for schools. So one way of thinking about those levy rates is that you are well below the state average for any school boards that have excess levies. And that is, I think, something that the board wanted to be as frugal and conservative as possible and still accomplish the mission for these purposes. And so those are the levy rates that would, when you take into account delinquencies and people who get the discount by paying early, would estimated to generate that amount of money that you set forth in that first table each year. Paragraphs 6 and 7 are really there to protect the taxpayers who have existing property in this county already at the time this levy would go into effect on July 1st if the voters approve it in the primary election. And essentially, section 6 says that the school board is permitted to reduce the levy rate from what we just looked at in section 5, that table there. If, uh, if actual assessments are producing funds greater than what you need. Now, this normally happens because the existing property values have gone up. Now, if they go up 4%, if there's a spike in property values, assessed values of existing property. In other words, we're talking about property on the books today, not new construction and new buildings that come on later, or new personal property comes on the books later, or a new coal mine or new oil and gas development or any sort of new recovery of natural resources. We're not talking about that. We're talking about existing property for existing property owners. If those assessed values go up more 4%, then section 7 says that the school board shall mandatory roll them back to keep them not going up more than 4%, so that is sort of a safety valve protecting taxpayers is one way to think about that, against a spike in property valuations going up for existing properties. Now, section 8, we've already talked about. These are the fiscal years starting July 1st of those years, those 5 years, those 5 fiscal years that we're talking about. That's when the levy would be in effect, this excess levy, if the voters approve. And speaking of which, paragraph 9 says that the additional levies shall be submitted to a vote in the county at the election on May 14th. And section 10 says that if the voters by majority approve, then these will take effect. And you will not be issuing any so-called excess levy bond that would be repaid out of these excess levy funds during the life of this levy. And that's something you have to state. So no excess levy bonds out of this. And you state that at the end of section 10. Section 11 deals with situations where sometimes you may get some dollars from a grant from the federal government or the state, and you've had some success getting some funds from the school building authority in the past, and you may have a needs project, which would be for maintenance or something. And if you got some money from the SBA, just by way of example, for a small project then, and it was one of your projects that you were going to use excess levy funds, you can spend that grant on the same purpose or use the excess levy funds or in substitution for the grant, or vice versa. So that 11 makes it clear that you do have the power to go out and get additional monies for the same purpose. You could do more in safety, you could do more in maintenance facilities, you could do more in support for students if you can get the grants. You're not limited, you're not constrained from going out and getting additional grants just because you went through the levy, excess levy. I'll mention a county, well, I won't mention it by name, but one of our traditionally high coal producing counties in southern West Virginia was doing very well for a long time. And then one year, the coal market completely bottomed out, and several major coal mine operators in that county could not pay or refused to pay their property taxes and filed bankruptcy. And it put a world of hurt on that county school board's budget. In fact, they had to do some major cuts, and they were on the verge of being taken over by the State Department of Education because of their finances being in kind of a rough shape. It wasn't necessarily their fault. I'm not saying that. The coal market just completely bottomed out. So the question is, what do you do if your collections on this excess levy fall short of what you projected? That can happen. That coal county I was mentioning as an example, that's exactly what happened to them. And basically it says that the board would have to make a determination which one of the above purposes would be cut and by how much, but only by the amount you're short total. And it says that further, you'll try to protect purposes A and B, which are safety and security, and support for students' transportation before maintenance of buildings. And you're going to lift those purposes up and try to protect them the best you can in the event of a shortfall. Section 13 says that you will publish notice of the election in the Hinton News and the Register Herald twice in 2 successive weeks within 14 days preceding the election. In talking to superintendent and staff, those were the 2 newspapers that you, like if you were advertising for bids and such, that you usually turn to. So it seemed only right and proper that we use both of those in this particular case to publicize the excess levy election. Now, Section 14 essentially repeats a lot of what we've just covered, almost all of it, because you have to put it in the actual ballot, and you have to include in your order here today the official ballot. And that is what Section 14 does. It really sets forth this official ballot. Now, let me pause here and say that somebody might be scratching their head when they read that, and it says special election. When we're going on a primary, it's not really a special election, it's a primary. And we get that, we understand that, and we agree with it. But under West Virginia code, when the legislature changed the rules of the road and said that you have to do a school excess levy election only in a primary or a general, they did go back and change some other sections of the code, which said that when you put a ballot out together, you got to call it a special election. So we're stuck calling it a special election in the official ballot. We all know if you approve this, that it would go on the primary ballot in May, not a special election out of cycle with your primary and general. So anyway, the rest of it repeats itself, so I won't go back through what we've already covered, Mr. President. But at the end, it says, if you mark for the levies, you have a box to mark on page 6 at the bottom. And if you're against the levies, you have a box you can mark. And on the top of page 7, you'll see the instructions for voters that have to be printed as part of that ballot. And then that's the end of the form of the ballot, and that's the end of the order. And Mr. President and board members, I'd be happy to take any questions. A shorter summary is on that 1-page overview that I think the superintendent mentioned is available there in the room. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. We've worked hard with your superintendent and Cassandra and the staff there to put together. They've also submitted it to the auditor's office, local government services unit, which reviews these sorts of things and oversees excess levies and the property tax rates for the different levying bodies in every county in the state. And we've taken their comments and feedback into account. One of their comments was that even though it's a primary election, you got to call it on your ballot a special election. We've addressed each of those and believe that this would be in order now for consideration and a possible vote by the board, Mr. President, if it meets with board approval.
Okay, thank you, sir. And you answered my question. I was going to just make sure that all the changes recommended by the auditor's office had been put into place. So you've already answered that one for me. Are there any other questions or comments that board members would like to make? About the public, does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the levy? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. Nice to meet you, sir. My name's Elisa Camera. I grew up here. Up here, my father was on the Board of Education back in the day. And
I had just a few general ideas. I really wasn't here for the levy, but I just had like silly things like garden clubs and stuff. But I'll share that later. But I did have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, since we have you. I am definitely a child advocate. I am a teacher. I taught in Florida, certified K through 5, just so you guys know, in SLD. And I am truly a child advocate. And this county needs child advocates. Um, our board is up against some tremendous challenges, and they are doing a great job. And the teachers here at the high school and the elementary schools, I've witnessed it because I've substitute. They're doing a great job. There's no doubt. But we can do better, and we can do more. And we can give these kids hope because they need hope. And I'm just one person, but I do have some questions pertaining to the levy. And then if y'all will appease me with my little silly stuff later in the meeting, that would be great too. My question for the levy, and I don't know a lot of numbers. I'm just speaking as somebody who hears what teachers are asking. Because when do we ask the teachers what they need or what they want? Like, when do we actually go into the classroom and go, what can we do for you to make this school work? We can change the demographic of this county if we excel in our schools, and we're not. We're not. I mean, we're trying our best, and I love you guys for trying, but we can do a little bit better. But I'll get off of that. But I do have some questions. What is your name, sir?
His name's Roger.
Roger, you are the school board attorney from Charleston. Is that right?
Correct.
I'm a school finance attorney, yes, that's right.
Okay, you're a finance attorney. I'm talking to you as a parent, if I were a parent here, and I'm going on election day, and I want to vote, I want to help my kid succeed, and I want to know what the hell is this levy going to do for my kid? Just be nice, you know. I see here that you have safety and security, $350,000, student academics, $652,000, building and grounds, $500,000, right? They want to know, and I know this because I've talked to parents. They want to vote. I think they would want to vote yes. You guys have worked hard. They want to vote yes, but they want to know where their money's going. These are hard-working people. They work at GoMart. They work, you know, in whatever coal mines are left. They're hard-working people, and they want to know, if I'm going to pass this levy, show me where the money is going. When you have on this $350,000 for safety and security, can you show me a contract? How did you come up with that number? How did you come up with $350,000 that you can go to that parent and go, this is where your money's going. This year, we're going to hire a security officer for $24,000, and part of your levy money is going towards that security officer. It's really hard when you have these average annual amounts. And I know you're an attorney and you're dollars and cents, but I'm talking about the common person, the common teacher who works really hard here, who I feel is underpaid in this county because you guys bust your ass.
You want me to answer that real quick?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So security and safety, that number comes from hiring 2.5 people, 2 SROs, half-time probation officer, the other half the state pays through a grant. One other thing is,
Perfect.
the other thing is for the building security, we have technology that needs to be updated with certain secure things like cameras and locks and things of that nature. So that gives you very specific.
Totally.
The second one, we can give you all those specifics and give everybody that as we go out in the community and answer those questions. As far as I'm concerned, the middle one, that is average of what we've booked from people who have worked. So if you're a bus driver and you take kids on a trip, we're going with the average of a bus driver, so that gives that amount. Community schools, that'll pay for the people who help make that happen. We come down with salaries and benefits to give you an average about what it will cost people from the people who've worked for us. And then the $500,000 for the building, I would love to have that to be closer to $3 million, but there's no way we can ask people. So we ratcheted it way back to go 35%, not 100%. So you're trying to help out with that. So those are great questions you're asking.
I know that, and those are great answers. I'm just saying, specifically speaking, when somebody goes to that ballot box and they're like, I want to pass this levy, but I know you're averaging that this is exactly what we need. Can you all provide or help them, and you're doing a great job. But these are common blue-collar workers. They want their kids to succeed. They want them to move out of this county. We want people to come into this county. How can we change our demographic when people are leaving the county because their kids are not being educated where they think they should be? And that is no fault of you, and that is no fault of our teachers. It's the money's not there. There's some reason why the money's not there. And I'm just saying, if I were voting, I would want to know specifically before this election comes, we've got 3 contracts. I know like in the city where I'm from, they placed 3 bids on janitors. Here's 3 bids on janitors. Let's vote. Let's have them come in, pitch what they can do. And then whatever janitor can do the best job on the budget, there it is. So we can show them. I think it's just a matter of, it's like I tell my second graders, show me, don't tell me. Show me you did your homework. Don't tell me the dog ate it. Just show me. And I'm not saying that you guys are doing great. And I love your answers. I'm just trying to get in the head of people that live here that want to see a difference. They need to know where this $1.5 million on the average annual amount is. Where is I'm sure you guys have the public record where your budget is, the annual Summers County School Board budget. Maybe share that with people so they know this is the budget, this is where the salaries are going, this is where the janitor's getting paid. They need to know that the money that they're going to pay for this levy is making a difference. And I feel like they don't feel like it's making a difference here. And it's not nitpicking anybody. They just need to know where the money is. But I'll get off the levy because I know you're an attorney and I have other little things I want to talk about. But I'm just saying to help you guys before this election, I think you need to give the people, they deserve it. They deserve to know that if we pass this $1.5 billion, this summary, God love you, sir. I think this is, great, the way you've got to lay it out when you have safety, security, 350,000. Where's that going? How much? Where are your bids? How did you come up with that? Your bids, like you said, for 2 security officers, whatever. Show that. Tell them this is exactly where it's going. Your academic services and transportation, $652,000. Is it going to the bus driver salaries? God knows they could use a lot more to pay because they bust their ass every day, and that's not an easy job. They need to know. Buildings and grounds, I'll do that next, but they just want to know, that's all. I think you guys are doing great. I'm glad you're here to make a difference. I'm just trying to help just because Jay and I grew up here. It was different when we grew up here. And we need to bring that back. These kids need hope. And it's hard to give them hope when we can't pass a levy to better our school system. And I'll stop. And you're doing a great job. And you guys are doing a great job. But then I did have a few other questions. So I'll go back to that later.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we have before us the levy consideration that's been presented, along with the comments that have been made. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the levy consideration.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we move forward with the levy consideration. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that the Summers County Board of Education has approved moving forward with the levy consideration on the May 14th ballot. All right, we have item 5. We have public comment, and I think you had some comments you would like to make as well.
Yes, please, I'm so shy. Yes, I'm so shy.
Could you have,
Actually, he knows what meeting is meeting. I'm kind of OCD, I have packets. Teacher packets.
hey, can I ask you one thing?
Yes.
I know you like to move around, and I do too, but can you at least carry this around and hold it? Because
way
it goes
people
out to YouTube and people say comments like, we couldn't
can't
hear her.
Yes.
You can-
Hello, everybody out there. Yeah. Okay, this is like from the biggest ideas to the smallest ideas, from being here, substituting. It's a privilege to work with these teachers. It is a privilege and an honor to work with these principals. It is a privilege and an honor because it's very tough. It's very tough here. You have very big challenges. And I feel like all the credit goes to you guys. These kids are tough. It's not easy in today's world. I have friends in Florida that are teachers. I was a teacher in Florida. Everywhere it's kind of crazy, but for you guys, it's even more challenging. So I just have from the biggest to the smallest, and then I won't keep you guys because I know I'm being a pain in the ass. Oops, earmuffs. All right. Hinton Area Elementary could use a deep clean and pressure washing, and you guys probably already have that going. I'm sure you do. On the outside of the building. It brings in good morale and helps with motivation to have a clean building with both the staff and the students. Jeff and I volunteered to go out and pressure wash the building. The windows. We'll go. We can do it. I mean, honestly, we don't even mind volunteering. Jeff is a retired firefighter, paramedic. Give these kids some hope. You know, they come from maybe impoverished areas that the school is all they have. Make it nice for them. They deserve it. They're our future. Okay, and what I did, because I'm a little OCD, is I've actually attached commercial cleaning services to possibly get quotes from and perhaps select the top 3 services, have them come to a board meeting, pitch what they can do and how much. Have the board choose and go with it. And also, we need better lighting in that school. And maybe money is an issue, and I'm getting there with the money too. And then from the biggest to the smallest issues. Once you clean the outside of these schools, Talcott, Jumping Branch, Hinton area, create a garden club. Put these kids to work. Tap in on your resources. Tap in. You've got kids. Put them to work. It's a good thing. It's rewarding. Okay, so that's just on a side note. That was my brain going crazy. And then high school. In Florida, high school seniors have to have so many, I think it's 75 credit hours to graduate from high school. You don't graduate from high school if you don't give 75 hours to your community. You've got strong, healthy, able-bodied kids. They have nothing to do. Put them to work. They'll feel good when they're done. You got to tap into this. Let's get motivated. I know in Florida we have them help with the younger sport team, go to nursing homes, help at the Railroad Museum and the Veterans Museum. And I tell you, we can start with the kids painting the bathrooms at Hinton Area Elementary because there's some very bad language on the bathroom stalls at Hinton Area Elementary. That is inexcusable for fifth graders and fourth graders to be doing that.
Let me pause you just a minute. Mr. Hunter, I think, I apologize. I think we are finished if you want to go ahead and drop.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to work with you all, and I will do that if I don't have to check it.
I apologize, I didn't tell you sooner, Mr. President. I just pointed out that you were still on the screen. You can thank him for that.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
I'll be
your
quick.
time.
I'll be quick.
Take care.
Thanks. See ya. Okay. JROTC. It doesn't cost anything to start a JROTC. We have 3 veterans that are ready to start a JROTC. They were 2 years ago. It doesn't cost anything, and I've supplied that in your packet. All the information that tells you exactly about the JROTC and how to get that started. They supply the uniforms, they supply everything. Give these kids hope. Maybe they'll want to join the military. For goodness sake, why do we not have a JROTC program when honestly, you can either pay the commanders here locally, or they even had people that would volunteer to have a JROTC. Just say. And then vocational school. These kids need hope. You all, by the way, have been invited by my Beirut Marine veteran. Jay knows I'm very close to the Beirut Marine veterans. I have a Marine brother up in Petersburg, West Virginia. He heads the vocational school there. I went up there to speak about a month ago. He said, I invite your school board to come see how we do it. I will gladly take you guys up there. If you want to do a field trip, let's go. I'll take you out to dinner, whatever. Let's see how they do it. Let's learn how they do it, and maybe we can do it here. We don't have any money. We don't have any facilities. There's an empty building downtown where the Bobcat Fitness Center is. That could house nursing, cosmetology, carpentry, electrical. So when these kids graduate, if they don't go to college, at least they have a skill and a trade to get a job. There's no reason not to use that empty building. Get with the city, get with the county, figure out how to collaborate and make that happen. I'll almost be quiet. And then from the smallest to the biggest, morning announcements, we do this in Florida. The morning announcements in the elementary school, we do the pledge, we do the saying, our lovely lunch ladies, and then we're done. Engage our children. Engage our children. It should be the morning, the pledge, lunch, your club activities of the day, this day in history, school birthdays, word of the day, joke of the day. You know, if they say the word of the day in the school in the hallway, the principal gives them a sticker. Engage these children. We can't treat them like animals or they're going to be animals. If we treat them like animals, they're going to be animals. Give them the respect. And then doors, another little one, but we have in Florida door holders. Every day I go out of Hinton Area Elementary and there's like 10 people pushing the door. I'm amazed nobody gets injured. Give these kids a job. The kids that get there first, the kids that leave last, put a little, whatever you call it, vest, and let them be the door holders. Give these kids jobs. You've got to resource the children. You got to resource the children. And then you got to resource the parents. These parents, these kids are raising themselves. They are raising themselves. I'm sure you teachers feel like you've adopted these children during the day, 5 days a week, because, you know, they're kind of raising themselves. By default, their parents work really hard. Don't give up. Do donuts with dads once a month. Do mornings with moms. Do grown-up morning. Invite them. 2 might come, 20 might come, but the word will spread. And you know what? Employers will say, oh, if you're going to be late, that's a problem. But if you're going to be late to go have breakfast with your kid, by all means, you go have breakfast with your kids, get here late. You got to start it. You got to try it. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Oh, this is a big one. Keyboarding starts in 8th grade. Is that right? Does anybody know? When does keyboarding start here?
In the elementary, they work on it or they're supposed to work on it for a specific amount of time during the week. It's not necessarily every day. Once they get to the middle school, there isn't a keyboarding class.
Okay, you can stop there. Well, I've taught in Florida, but it doesn't matter across the country. Keyboarding starts in 3rd grade. Keyboarding starts in 3rd grade. We've issued computers to kids in elementary school, and we haven't taught them how to use them. So we've thrown the computers at them. We put them on Prodigy and Reflux, and they spend hours on the computer, but they don't know how to type their name on it. 3rd grade. Figure it out. Figure out the budget. Help us help them. Figure out a budget. Your special should have computer lab, PE, art, and music. Figure it out. Yes.
What county were you in Florida?
I was in Seminole County.
Where?
Seminole.
Seminole, okay.
Top county.
I lived in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, as you would agree, the demographics are somewhat different.
Absolutely.
And the income levels are somewhat
Absolutely.
different. And another question I might have for you, because I know what my property taxes were when I left Florida. What would you estimate your taxes to be? Not getting just a round number.
Why am I disclosing that?
Well, because I'll tell you, when I left Florida in 2004, my property taxes were $19,750.
Okay.
Okay, so the problems that I think that you have here, this is an observation.
I think we're getting off board here.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had little ideas. This is it. I'm done. I'm done. That was all I had. Yes, absolutely. We don't have the money like they had in Florida, but we need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm trying to be part of the solution. Let's put our heads together and figure out a way to raise money in this county to make a difference with these kids and get them educated. I'm not disagreeing with you, sir. Aside from the fact that I came from Florida, I grew up here. I know the demographic. How do you change the demographic? How do we change it? I have a 30-year-old that might move here and want to have kids one day, but why is he going to move here if he feels like the education isn't adequate? Would he pay taxes or a levy to make that difference? Yeah, he might. But you got to present it to these people. You can't just shut the door. So this is all I have. We need to give potential new families that might want to move here a reason to move here. Young families do not want to move into places with bad school districts. Young families want to move into places with good school districts. It starts at the front door. Clean up the outside of the schools. We'll volunteer. Honestly, if you give us the green light, me and my husband will go pressure wash Hinton Area Elementary as soon as the snow stops. We will volunteer. And if we don't volunteer, you have high school seniors, you have able-bodied kids, put them to work. They'll feel good about themselves. And involve the parents. You're going to be, there's going to be 10 times, no, I'm not coming, but there might be the one time that one of them comes and says, I want to do donuts with dads. We need to give these children from elementary to high school hope. The teachers and staff and the board, you guys are doing a great job. But we can always do a little bit more, and we can always do a little bit better. And sir, I totally understand that, yep, my taxes were super expensive, and we got to do a lot of things in Florida that we can't do here. But let's be part of the solution. Let's figure out how to make a difference. If we need to pass this levy, which seems very general to me, tell these voters exactly what that levy is going to do for their kid. If you can't tell them, it's not going to pass, because it's never passed in the last few years from what I hear. If you can't tell them this is where the money's going, it's not going to pass. That's it. I'm done. And you have information on JROTC in the packet. You have quotes for Hinton Area Elementary to have it cleaned up. That school has mold in it, I'm just saying, because I've been there.
It's happening in the next month.
I love
We already did pre-bids, we're just waiting on.
I love you. Oh my God.
It's coming in.
Yay, yay, yay. So, yeah, I think you guys are great. I'm just trying to help. That's all. I'm not the enemy. And there's also a packet, I think, about the vocational school. Oh, and there's also a grant in there for $8 million. $8 million by the EPA. If you look in here, that's the last thing. There is a grant in here with the EPA. It just opened up, and it is a grant to allow for schools that have bad indoor air population, that's a sick building. It's allowing $8 million to go to 6 schools. Get a grant writer and apply for that grant. That's $8 million that could go to these schools for the mold and mildew that might be going on. But that's free money right there. You just have to look for it. And all the information for that grant is in there, exactly where to go to and the deadline. It's worth it to pay a grant writer to help you with the grant and try and get that submitted. All they can do is say no, but at least you can try, and maybe you'll get $8 million, and maybe that's the start. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, item 6, and next we have presentations, and this is for Christy Schaefer and Ellen Holt on the prisons.
A few weeks back, Mr. Warble emailed me and had an idea for a VR set for our students, prison. And I looked into it, and I contacted one of my M3T fellows, Michael Harshbarger from Cabell County. She was actually finalist for State Teacher of the Year, and she uses it, and she loves the program. It has modules that go along with it that they add to our students' level. So, say they're learning linear equations in Algebra 1. They put on this VR headset, and they're immersed in a scenario, a real-life hands-on scenario, using that content. And it actually looks really, really cool, and I'm really excited to pilot it. I think it would be a good opportunity for our students to get that hands-on that they don't always get. I mean, we try, but we don't always manage to get it with everything, and this would help with that. The more they see the relevance of it, the more they see those real-world applications, the more seriously they're going to take it. And the more seriously they take it, the better they can do.
Currently, we have the math program is available. Coming is chemistry and physics and biology. That's coming soon. Also, next year they're going to work on a middle school version. So the goal is for this school is to start a STEM lab for middle school and for high school, and to bring that virtual reality to our schools to, give the students experience that they're not going to get in the classroom with a sheet of paper, where they're going and they're building and they're working on the figures, or they're building out, like the building out here, they're going to look at construction, and that how they're going to use their math every day, how they're going to use the skills that they're learning to bring the world to them. So no, we're not always going to get our kids out into the world. So our idea basically is to bring the world to them through.
One of the
virtual reality.
videos Michael had sent me she sent me several of the things she had access to, and one of them, the kids are collecting water to test. And they go through and they are analyzing, well, they didn't analyze in the video that I watched, but they were measuring the amount of water that they collected, and it went along with one of her units. And she does teach Algebra 2 at the CTE Center in Cabell County, so.
One thing that you guys might not remember about it, but I'll throw it out there, see if you remember this. One thing that I liked about the program was spatially, you get into a model that makes you feel like you're involved versus 2D paper and pencil. Now, paper and pencil will still be used, but you go into that world, you fail forward, and the teacher can know that you're failing or succeeding without you being embarrassed, because some kids, I know I didn't want to perform in front of others because if I messed up in front of my buddies, I would get embarrassed by it, and I don't want to be looked as less than. So you can go into this world for a couple days, but then the teacher pulls you back out, and then you really learn about geometry. I'll give that as an example. I didn't understand geometry until I got into construction in the summer, and I was able to learn how to put those things together in a spatial sense, because paper pencil did not make sense to me. So this world gives kids that opportunity to go in there, and then she can make comments to them or give them hints and help them out and be in their world without being involved in front of everybody else to see me make a mistake, if you will. Or for those who are always successful, they might not want people to know because people say, well, you're the teacher's pet and you just want to be special, that too. So does that make sense on the spatial part of it?
It does.
Okay.
And as she mentioned with the middle school, the sooner we get students in those immersive things, the younger we get the problem solving and thinking, the better, easier it is to train their brains. If they get to 9th grade and they have never had anything except, here's a worksheet, do these 20 questions, it is hard to teach them how to think. It is a fight to teach them how to think if they've never been exposed to it before. So the sooner we can get these kids thinking in that type of way, the better off they're going to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have item 7. We have the minutes from January 5th, 2024 regular meeting. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the January 5th, 2024 meeting. Motion by myself, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the minutes from the January 5th, 2024 regular meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Aye.
The minutes reflect by a 3-0 vote with Mr. McBride abstaining that the minutes for the January 5th, 2024 meeting have been approved. Next, we have bills. Mr. McBride, I'm going to turn this over to you. Step out for a minute.
All right. Now we have before us a bill from Summers County Board of Education to Mr. Angel.
Make a motion that we pay the bill to Gregory Angel, bill credit reimbursement.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, next before us, we have a bill for R.T. Rogers.
Make a motion
Second.
Have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pay RT Rogers. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 3-0 vote with Mr. Brogan recusing himself that the bill for RT Rogers has been approved for payment. All right, now, still under item 8, we have the remaining bills for us. Again, thank you for the color-coded copy. Where's she at? There she is.
Make a motion that we pay the remaining bills.
Second.
Have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pay the remaining bills. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that the remainder of the bills have been approved for payment. Old business. We have a discussion or possible action regarding legal representation. So at the last board meeting, we did ask if we could get some estimates, hourly rates, travel costs between office and here, things like that. Do we have any of that?
We're still working.
Still working on it? Okay. Let's just leave this on the agenda.
Okay.
And then we'll look at it at the next meeting. New business, item 10, approved purchases over $25,000. So we have the IVR math platform, that's the prisons. So I looked over this earlier today, and thank you for your presentation. I do have questions. I saved them till now. So we have 25 units. That's what I was looking at. This is a cost of $26,000. With 25 units, what is the implementation of this going to be? Is it going to be high school, middle school, combination of both?
At the moment, I think the modules are only available for high school.
So how many high school students would be using these?
We talked about myself and maybe Ms. Jody Weichel with science working on it. We couldn't do it the same day.
Right.
But my class sizes are around 25, so that would be a classroom set. I have about 100, maybe 110, 15 students, so probably 200, 225 students first year.
And how often do you think you would be able to use these?
I would have to look at the modules to be able to answer that because it just depends on what the modules are that they have ready and how they would fit into my curriculum.
One thing I do know, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, and Ms. Jones or Mr. Kuhn jump in, but it sounds like each module is like a 3-day module. It's not gaming, so there's nothing, you know how when you play a game, they make you addicted to a game to make you get to the next level? This is not addicting at all. This meets the standards of the state, but also meets what she's trying to get with the concept of learning math in a spatial sense, but also coming back to 2D, paper, pencil, because you got to do both. So if that helps you answer that question as well.
I guess my concern, and you're the math teacher, so you can address this for me maybe. My concern is I know we have a lot of students who struggle with basic math, that they're not up to grade level, or they struggle with the basic math functions. How's this going to benefit them?
What I found throughout my teaching career is that the students that struggle most with mathematics do the best with these types of things because it gives them an in. It's not an algorithm, it's not a formula, it's not memorize this and spit out this equation. It's thinking through and it ties in. So I really think it could be very, very beneficial for our students.
And have you all had an actual presentation of these devices?
Not of the devices themselves. We did speak to the representative, but I've not actually seen the physical thing yet.
Is it possible to get a demonstration at one of our meetings?
I could maybe talk to Ms. Harshbarger and see if we can maybe arrange something. I don't know. It's pie in the sky goals at this point because she does teach in Cabell County, but I can at least speak to her.
And
she implements it frequently and loves it.
I'm glad you said that because you mentioned Cabell County. Do we know if there are any other counties using them?
Yes, McDowell County has it. They've been using it this past school year. They started using it after seeing Cabell County's presentation that they brought to all the superintendents this summer. The state is not necessarily endorsing it. They're letting counties make that decision at this point in time, but this could be something where they might do this statewide because all these headsets come preloaded, and then they have the tech support, and then they provide the professional development for the staff. So that's what's included as well.
And
What
then
I really liked about these headsets is they work with other programs as well, they're not made just for this one program.
it talks about the terms of partnership. It's a 6-month term. So is this an annual cost that we're going to?
The headsets wouldn't be, it would be,
Programming.
yeah, it's like licensing.
Right.
So
That's
you're
what I was
paying
trying-
for the licensing, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we have any idea how much that's going to cost?
For the whole year? I don't know if it's double because you have to look at, we've already done the training. The part would be probably the licensing of the students, but I can't give you a concrete answer to say it's this amount for a 12-month period.
I would like some more information on that because I would hate to spend, and I know this is not county funds, it's COVID funds, but it's still taxpayer funds and we all pay taxes. I would like to know how much that's going to cost for an annual license because I'd hate to pay $26,000 for something and then it's set in a corner somewhere because we couldn't find the money to pay for the license. I don't know if the company could do a presentation for us, if they.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they could. We can also ask McDowell County or, I mean, if the Cabell County teacher would like to, it's just, that's a further drive. I was just thinking proximity.
She's the one that
No.
I have access to, so that's why I thought.
Well, you can, let's just do that and we'll see what we can do for the board at the.
And it could be on, like we did with the lawyer, so.
I'll speak to her about it. As far as the cost, it probably will be different for them because they do have more students. So I'm
Right.
assuming they have more than 25 headsets, 25 licenses.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's a standalone CTE center. So I
Right.
will talk to her though, I will see, but I think the company would be a better route to go as far as the specifics of the finances.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know is what the annual cost of this is going to end up.
But I can definitely see if Michael could meet virtually with us. and,
Okay.
Speak about her experience with it, what all it offers.
And I've kind of monopolized the conversation. You all go ahead.
So are these the same devices that we approved for new school a few months ago?
Those are new schools' devices. We don't pay for those devices.
And they were a rental or a lease. We don't own those devices.
But if we wanted to, these devices could handle that software though, if that makes sense. But we would have to, again, purchase the software for that. That would be a cost to us, but we just farm it out to new school because they do all that and then they just bring it in and do it that way.
Questions, comments?
Thinking if it's a $26,000 purchase, people sell them, at least do a Zoom meeting.
That's what I'm thinking. And I think there's a lot of unknowns. I will make a motion that we take no action on this, or we put this on the next agenda. We can do it either way.
Well, you can just put no action and move on.
No action, and
Yep.
we'll put it on the next agenda, and if you can get
Sure.
any information for us before then.
Yep.
If not, we'll carry it over.
I'll email Michael this evening and see if we can arrange a time.
See if she can get the middle school teacher too, because he did a great job presenting as well at the middle school level, and those two really worked well together.
It's easy to work with Mike.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay.
And that's a female too, I got it.
But thank you all for coming and talking to us about it. All right, item 10B, discussion or possible action regarding the bus rebate.
I don't have any information at this point in time. We're still waiting.
And, but we needed to take action on it by this board meeting
I know, but
for that.
we're just waiting on them. I think like anything else, if they want us to get the rebate in this state and do it, they'll get it done. So I don't have any information to give you at this point.
But based on the conversation we had, all we needed to do is if we wanted him to move forward.
Yeah.
And then he would come back, we could opt out at any time.
To fill out the application
Right.
for the rebate and submit it.
If that's what you guys want to do, that's fine. But I haven't heard anything back from Larry at all at this point in time.
Yeah, it was my understanding after the last meeting, Larry was just waiting for us to,
Okay.
to take action so he would know whether to proceed with
Okay.
submitting for the rebate.
All right.
Is that the way you all understood it?
And there's almost like an expiration of it.
Yeah, coming up quick. Yeah, so, all right. I'll make a motion that we proceed with asking Larry to apply for the bus rebate.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we proceed with asking, and I don't know his last name, but Larry
Fowler.
Thank
Yep.
you. Larry Fowler to proceed with applying for the bus rebate.
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that we will proceed with asking Larry Fowler to apply for the electric bus rebate. All right, item 11, personnel. So we have before us resignation and retirement. We have service personnel. And we have no name. Did we have a name for Matt Field Davis?
Mr. Kuhn has a couple names.
Mr. President, that position is a 6-hour maximum position.
Okay,
We have 2 employees willing to do that, to not exceed the 6 hours. Their personal schedules can't allow them to do the whole thing. It's going to be Kristen Richmond, Tucker Ford.
okay. Thank you. All right, then we have our mentor teacher listed here. We have substitute teachers, 2 of those listed, and homebound teachers, or homebound teacher. So these names have all been posted on the agenda and posted for the amount of time required by our policy. And I had one question, and that was on the service personnel, Amanda Withrow, aide 2, Jumping Branch Elementary, and that's 2BD. Do we have any idea of what that date's going to be? Is that going to be after we fill her position?
Yeah, we're all jam right now.
Okay,
You know how a domino falls and then some other people take positions?
yeah.
That's what he means by a log jam. That's school personnel for you.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendations for the aforementioned positions.
And I'll second that. Okay. Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by myself, that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for the personnel positions mentioned. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote that the superintendent's recommendation for personnel has been approved. Item 12, superintendent's report. We have the Summers County Comprehensive High School LSIC meeting.
I will turn it over to Dr. Green since he's standing up. He acts like he's not. We'll go with Dr. Green to do the presentation for the LSIC.
Yeah.
Take a recess.
Take a recess and let me get set up.
Okay, so I'll make a
I'll let you
motion
make that one.
that we take 15-minute, 10-minute,
15.
take a 15-minute recess.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McBride. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Let the minutes reflect at 5:09. We will take a 15-minute recess.
She needs to be our spokesperson in the community.
Good. All right, I'd like to call back to order this Summers County Board of Education regular meeting, January 23rd, 2024. And we are currently at the item 12 on our agenda, Superintendent's Report, the Summers County High School LSIC.
All right, so this evening, when we're looking at what we wanted to talk about and how we wanted to show the progress of our school, what we want to go through is kind of like a story. The different priorities for our school, how we've achieved them, and give you some examples. So before we go into the boring data and stuff of that nature, we have some students who are coming to talk about some of the projects that we have, and then we have Mr. Jones coming to talk about the projects happening in our new CTE program, the building maintenance program. So the first thing we're going to hear from is Ms. Holt's robotics team. And this year, one of the things we've done for students is to establish clubs. Now, robotics meets in the afternoons, but it's kind of part of that, under that umbrella of clubs, things students are interested in. When we looked at some of the reports from our diagnostic in the spring, student clubs were things that, or student clubs were was an item that was indicated that students wanted. They wanted more opportunities for that. So tonight we have two clubs. We're going to start with Ms. Holt and her robotics team, and we will go from there.
So how did you guys get picked?
They were the ones that were interested.
That one there? Okay, you don't blame her.
Well, okay, technically, he may have been hounded into doing it, but,
Okay, fair enough.
no, this actually came from my work with N3T, and I know I keep talking about that, but Joe Frost from Woodrow Wilson, at one of our math conferences said, "Come here, lady, I want to talk to you from Fairmont." Yes, ma'am. I went and talked, and it was about the robotics team, and it just kind of blossomed from there. These guys are two of the, what, they have about 5 that show up on a regular basis, 5 or 6 that we have from the high school that are on the team. We haven't been able to compete this year because we've had some travel difficulties, and we've had some design disagreements, would you say?
Yeah.
But it's a learning process, so.
Yeah. So we have finally agreed on a design, just keep it small and light for the competition. Very maneuverable. It surprised me at times. And everything's trial and error. It really doesn't. What's the bonus right now? As you can see, the wheel is trying to fall.
They have an engineering notebook that they use to write down their designs and things that they change. And I've got to get a requisition in for a piece that we're missing. They've been instructed to hound me nonstop until I get the requisition put in.
Yeah. Once we do have that piece, we believe we would be competition ready. Nearly, maybe, probably.
I'm just afraid that it's so late in the season that we won't actually get to compete. But that's okay because
This year, but next year definitely.
yeah.
And we're all set up to reinforce the problems. Yeah, definitely.
We are going to try to go, because I've been told that they can volunteer even without registering to compete. They can go and they can meet people that are doing it. They can learn more about the engineering process. They can volunteer at some of these events. So I'm going to go online. There's one Saturday, but it kind of came up last minute on us that I didn't realize. And I'm going to look and see if there's another one close by that we can take them to, that we can kind of plan a little bit better and just let them go meet some of the kids that do this on a regular basis and talk to them and network a little bit. There is a part of coding that goes along with this. It's not just all joystick. In the actual competition, there's a part where they have to manually control it, and then there's a part where they have to code it as well. So.
Yeah, so it's fully autonomous in the beginning stages. We are running into problems though that we have to make the code essentially, which is going to be fun to do, if I can use that word for it.
But that was part of why they were hounded into doing it, is because they have the experience with that coding that I don't have.
So, the VEX V5 program has its own protocols and blocks to make it easier, but it's missing some blocks, so we have to go in the backdoor of Python and add blocks.
Yeah, yeah.
Sneaky devil.
But it's been fun to watch them progress as they go through, even their arguments, when they're actually focused and working on it, didn't work, let's try this. And it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, that was one of the key aspects of coming up with the tricycle design. It saves a lot of weight, and the motors themselves don't like to cooperate with each other when they're side by side. So keeping the central rear wheel like this is
With the stock software, it only works with 3 motors.
So you said when the motors are close together, they don't work well?
Yeah, because where most of the motor control is like joystick, unless you have it perfectly evenly with 2 inputs at the same time, there's like a torque imbalance and it doesn't like to cooperate. Yeah, right now we're working on a extension arm actually, and we're having to jury rig some parts for it.
Yes, and like I said, you've been instructed to hound me every day until I get it in. The game that they're supposed to play at the competition this year, it's over under, and they're supposed to take these things they call acorns, and they're just big plastic, they're not even balls, they're just odd shaped plastic pieces. And they're supposed to take them and move them into their nets. And you can't do that without the claw arm, so.
Yeah, that's all.
I know, yeah. I'll get on it.
What's something you all struggled with, and then you had that aha moment, and it worked out? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It would definitely be how we're going to operate the claw. So there's a very strict size limit on the robot itself. It has to be 18 inches in all 3 dimensions at the maximum. So that's why we try to keep it very small, and we're trying to make an extending arm that we can attach the claw to, that we can raise, extend. And we're not trying to make the arm itself pivot, but that's why we let the robot have very maneuverable pivoting on its own.
Okay. The other one is the social side of it. You guys have to interact with each other, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys work with conflict resolution? Instead of saying, I'm right, we're doing it my way, how do you guys work that out? Because I see you're the quiet one, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right now, yes, he is.
Those are the ones you have to watch out for.
No, we really lucked out on that because most of us that are in this have known each other for years.
Okay.
And we all fell into this group because of stuff like this. So when this came up, it was kind of perfect for all of us.
Yeah.
So it was perfect.
In the future, if you guys, would you be willing to educate adults if we brought parents in? Like you mentioned earlier, community, would you guys be willing to teach older people who might not know anything about that?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
What about you though?
Yeah.
I'll be fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, as a group, like there's 1 or 2 of us that don't fully understand the whole, like the mechanisms, the operation that goes into it and the engineering side of it. So we have had to do that teaching experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they actually do a really good job at working through things with the other students and showing them why this has to be this way. So they do a really good job with that.
Cool.
So hopefully next year you'll see us competing.
Then at the beginning, we're split up into different teams pretty much, but
Yeah,
that's
that was
mainly
one,
where it out.
that was one of our main strategies.
Yeah,
We had,
that's
like,
why we delayed a little bit. They had
That's all right.
this group wanted this one, and this group wanted this one, and this group said, I don't like either one of those, so. But next year we should have, Miss Gill has the program with the 8th graders. So the upcoming freshmen, I'm hoping to keep them on board and these guys can kind of mentor them a little bit.
That'd be great.
Are we done? They keep looking to me to see if we're done. So.
Oh, good, guys.
Yeah.
So that one is more of an after-school club. This club is our Loving West Virginia Club. We have clubs on Fridays. We run a special schedule for about 45 minutes to allow for clubs. And this club in particular, they decided to take a field trip. And it was right before a break. And I want to commend Ms. Hannah for taking that on, because any other teacher would probably have said, listen, this is the last day for a break. We've been here since August. We're going home. And she took the time to go on this trip with these students, and the students showed a great amount of interest in it. And this is just an example of the work of clubs that goes beyond the school day. And it gives students something that they enjoy and look forward to, as opposed to just coming here and doing math and reading all day. All right, you have the floor.
Dear Summers County Board of Education members, Superintendent Warble, and those in attendance. My name is Casey Snavely. I'm currently in 8th grade at Summers County Comprehensive High School. This year, I chose the Loving West Virginia Club led by Miss Hannah. I would like to speak to you all about what a blessing this club has been to me. In November 2023, we traveled to Point Pleasant to learn about the West Virginia legend, the Mothman. While there, we visited the museum and famous statue, which is visited by tens of thousands yearly. When we returned, we made ornaments for our club's Mothman tree. In this club, we have also made blankets and learned so much about the wonderful state we call home. I am beyond thankful that I choose to participate in Loving West Virginia Club. It has made me realize that this state is truly wild and wonderful.
We are also planning a trip to Blackwater Falls in the future. One famous person I remember is Pearl Buck. We are also planning a trip to the nursing home as well in the future.
And this is the poster that has some photos on it of our club, and here's our Mothman tree.
And I have to speak up, I don't want to come up there, but each kid, the coffee cart has been a blessing. I thank Dr. Knott for that many years ago. But anyway, the Mothman trip was like just on a whim. Carol said, maybe they just want to go see the Mothman instead of going to Blackwater Falls. And I said, well, we could. So we planned it really quick, like 2 weeks. And our little coffee cart didn't have enough money to really. So I sent out an email and told some of the staff, all the staff, that my kids, my own class kids, had made like Mothman themed everything for our coffee cart on Friday. And so we had $300 some, really closer to $400 to take with us. So each kid got $20 for their lunch and to get something from the Mothman Museum. Well, some of you may not know who Isaiah is, but some of you know who Isaiah is.
I do.
Well, I put my husband in charge of Isaiah, and you really can't turn me back on Isaiah, but him and Jason Gore were in another part of the museum talking, and I'm like, you gotta send me the, well, they were actually in the retail part of it. Well, here comes Isaiah with a Lego thing that costs like $50 some. And I said, Monty, he can't get that. We don't have. These girls right here, along with a couple other girls, took some of their money that they got from me and bought him that.
That is
Went in the retail section when we were still in the museum and did it without me knowing. Because I had said, I don't know if that's a good idea, but they did it and he was happy.
But people have to understand, you have the special needs kids, and these girls helped out with that. And now I want to know if they want to become teachers. Well, I'm not joking. We need teachers. So that's a yes?
Maybe.
Okay, we got a maybe. That's good. Well, thank you for what you guys did. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's super nice.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah, for leading this club. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Warble, for letting us speak about this club. This club that is important to me and helps me be involved with my school and love my peers.
The Blackwater Falls towards the end of the school year.
So can we join this club here? Because I don't want a lot of things about West Virginia.
There's a lot of neat stuff about West Virginia.
I'm gonna give you the floor.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Green had asked me with the new program, building and maintenance, as well as carpentry, to come over and show you a few things of what we're doing. And rather than taking a generic approach to where all students are doing the same thing, some are interested, some are not, what we've done is we've tried to break it down on specific talents that student might have. Everything from wood burning. We have one young man who is excellent at freehand, and he's done a great job. but the students that work on individual projects. Now, the reason I asked Dylan to come up is we have, as you know, some of you may have gone to school here, they have the 2x2 boards or slats, if you want to call it that were aging, coming apart, and so on. So at Dr. Green's urging, he said, what can we do with that? So what we did is we came up with the idea of having composite benches. Okay, and effectively, the students have been involved, everything from measuring, cutting, finish work, and so on. Dylan has been a big part of that. But what we have found is that students take more of an interest if it's broken down into segments. So as a result, Dylan has done a lot of the lathe work, if you want to do that, even though we won't have a working lathe, we've made it work. But it's one of those things that I think that the students, to give you an example, we kind of robbed this one. And Dr. Green, he likes to pull his out very quickly. But let me just give you a few M&Ms, how's that? Okay, but the idea is simple. You just pull it out slowly, and there is a magnet attached. And the idea is you're dispensing M&Ms. Elementary teachers, I took one down to my daughter, who is an elementary teacher in the Charlotte Mecklenburg system. Dad, the teachers would love to have this, okay? Because it's a way in which you could give a little reward, and the kids would love the idea that they get to pull the plunger. Now, that's one of the things that we've done, and Dr. Holler, who is under contract with him, brought his in. And as I told Mr. Warble, we're kind of like the Japanese. We take the idea, the American idea, refine it, and then call it our own. So that's what we've done here. We more or less, I think you would agree, cut down the size of the platform. What we had planned to do is we're going to build multiple examples of this. I'm going to go to Tamarack, see if they're willing to take some over. I've talked with Trish King, who's with Marshall and the CTE coordinator, and she's very excited, believe it or not, about this. And what we have tried to do at Dr. Green's urging is to develop collaborative efforts between the various CTE programs. These benches, once they're put out in the spring, I've talked to Ms. Duffield, who's ag, and we'll do some planning and more or less pretty it up and make it a place where students want to go and maybe read in the spring, warmer climates and so on. I think that this may seem like a little thing, but Dylan, I said, we're not going to use what Dr. Holler had, which was basically the inside of a toilet paper roll, which he wrapped in string. And so Dylan, I said, Dylan, we ought to be able to do something out of wood. So he basically has took two 2x4s and put them together. We fashioned this, and we've done this all by hand. Okay? So we have a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent in this area. I think there's more, particularly with us being part of the National Park System, this is going to give us the opportunity to have craft programs like this. And Dylan, what would you say that has been the best thing about what we're doing relative to the way in which we've broken down the responsibilities?
Well, personally, I believe that it gives each person their own little thing and allows us to better master what we like, rather than doing something that we aren't entirely great at. And it allows us to be more efficient in the program.
Okay, the other thing that we're doing, once again, I'll give Dr. Green credit because he wants us to collaborate with various community organizations. So Jared Ewing, who's the art teacher here, avid golfer, as we all know, I always tell him he needs a little bit of that vitamin D anytime the sun's out. But anyway, he talked about the Elks Club, that they want to redo their tee markers, okay, the tee box. So I said, well, what do you have in mind? Give me a block of wood. Well, I think we can do a little bit more with it. So we did kind of a pyramid effect. And the colors, of course, the art department, part of the collaborative effort, will be painting those. They're going to need 92 of them. He says that he has an individual who is willing to provide the material. So if he does that, then the art department will do this part, and then they'll do the finish. And of course, we'll put a piece of rebar, stick it in the ground. That way they can move the tee boxes, from whatever part of the area that they want in order to keep the tee green, okay? Now, with that, I think that when we look, and we've even talked to Ms. Blair in our nursing department, how her students, might be able to offer some ideas. We had students to go over to Ms. Blair. She had a lot of equipment that she'd been trying to get hung on the walls, blood pressure cuffs, and so on. My students went in, and what she thought was going to take a long time, we were able to get it done in about a little under 2 hours. And she says, I can't believe it, the transformation. So the building and maintenance program is working because we're doing carpentry. We built a practice wall. That practice wall has the ability for the student to practice with drywall, basic electrical, i.e. switch, okay, outlet, ultimately a light, okay? So we're collaborating with the electrical department. So collaboration, all of our departments, rather than being separate entities, Dr. Green has encouraged us to work together and to become, if you will, one. And so what we have electrical, we have agriculture, we have building and maintenance, we have, I think it's parental, there's a parental program, okay? So there's a lot going on in this school system. And it's thanks to your leadership, your support, and the support of administration that's making this thing come together. So no longer are we building the big buildings. You have to measure these things the same as if you're building a building. You have to be able to read a tape. You have to be able to understand the finished product. With that, if you have any questions about what we're doing, Dylan, do you have anything to add?
No, not really.
Okay, I can only tell you this young man is a multi-talented individual, and we rely on him quite a bit. So,
thank you.
You're like the son I never wanted.
Oh, I hit a button.
No, you can make the M&Ms, pull the plumbing. The only thing I will add, Dr. Green said, you need a bigger plate. He pulled it out too fast. I said, do you want a soup bowl or what to do that?
So that's just kind of an actual snippet of things that are happening here in the progress we've been able to accomplish in just a semester. I will say when you come into this school, it seems the environment seems to be rather organized. It seems to be conducive to learning and success, and I think you've seen 3 examples of that. And we're going to talk about some more of that as we go through. But the first semester, as we talk about the priorities, has really been about the climate and culture and the structure of the school. Because if we don't take care of those 2 big rocks, nothing else is going to matter. You can have the best lesson you want, but if it's a zoo in that classroom, there is no learning that's going to take place. So, as I said at the beginning, we're going to focus on the priorities that we set when we went to the conference, and Ms. Schaefer and Ms. Cox were with me when we sat down at the Invest conference and we looked at our report from the diagnostic visit in March. And we looked at the different issues that were there, and we kind of built a plan or a list of priorities of things we wanted to tackle and an order in which we wanted to do that. And so that's kind of what I want to take you on today, is a discussion about where we are,
and where we still need to go. Because I'm not going to stand up here and say everything's perfect, it's great, because it's not. There are things we still have to work on, but there are successes we've had, and I think we need to talk about those.
So while you're switching slides, I think most of us know in this room what it is, but LSIC is Local School Improvement Council.
So to start, every year we write a strategic plan. It guides our work for the year, and we have 4 goals. Attendance, we would like to improve our daily attendance rate to 93%. For the year, we would like to get our graduation rate to 90. I believe the last I think our last rate was 87 or 88% from the previous year. We wanted to reduce our number of out-of-school suspensions by 5%, and then we would like to increase our academic data or our student proficiency by 3% from the previous school year. So those were our strategic plan goals, and they're intertwined in the goals for the priorities we set, but I really want to focus on those. So our first priority for this year is to develop a structure, and we needed a leadership team that is reflective of all staff members. We needed a structure for clear administrative duties and responsibilities to focus on the needs of students. And then none of the leadership that you have is going to work if the individuals who are responsible for it don't get out into the building to make sure it gets done and provide the feedback and support needed. So when we look at, I want to talk about reflective of all staff. This school is only 3 years old in essence, because we've put a middle and a high school together and we've created one school. But some of the traditions and the images that, are still reminiscent of one school, very much one school. So one of the first steps to fix that is to develop a leadership team that reflects individuals from both groups, from the 6-8 and the 9-12. Now, what I will say, one of the goals to also do that is I've tried to go away from saying middle and high school to discussing 6th grade and 6th to 8th grade, 9 through 12. I fail at it every day, but I keep trying to be conscious, and in leadership meetings and conversations we have, those are things that we talk about. So let's talk about the leadership team. The first thing we did was to create an entirely new leadership team, one where the staff elected who they wanted to set on the leadership team. So every person on this list, minus a couple, were put on this because their peers decided that's who they wanted to represent them. So the social studies department elected Ms. Weichel, the science department, social studies Ms. Vandal, English Mr. Wood, math Ms. Holt, related arts Ms. Gill, special education Ms. Vandal, and then we've always had a place for our faculty senate president, and this year Dr. Joe Lilly was elected to serve in that role. Mr. Franklin has always been on there because he kind of is our school safety and some ways facilities advisor. Ms. Hawkins, Ms. Schaefer, and then the administrators. The service personnel have elected Ms. Amanda Withrow, but by board action tonight, we're going to have to hold another election to find another rep. And then the student support team, which is our counselors and our CIS, they elected Ms. Hudson to represent them. And so what we have here is a team that very much is a healthy mix of middle school, or again, 6-8 and 9-12 teachers. And it gives us a good representation of our school, and that we're not looking at every decision we make from one perspective. We're looking at it from multiple perspectives. What you'll have in your packet as you go through, and I tried to put every handout as we went through, is you have I believe it's 2 sets of minutes. I gave you examples of minutes from our leadership team meetings so that you can see what happens in those meetings. That we make decisions that are school-wide, that it's not just an administrative decision. We bring the feedback from the staff at large, and then we as a team make the decisions for those particular items. And so I wanted to just give you some examples of what those might look like. So transparency has been a key piece through this whole improvement process. We meet twice a month on Wednesday afternoons right after school. We try to mirror them second and fourth Wednesdays. That doesn't always happen, but that is our set schedule. If there's a reason we have to deviate, then we do. But the agenda items that we're going to talk about is sent out to the entire staff, and they're told to find a leadership team representative, particularly the one in their department they elected, if they had comments, questions, or concerns, and to discuss those particular items. We always start out a meeting with what's working, what's not working. That way we know what we need to address from their perspective. Then once we have our meetings, the decisions are made, we send those out as soon as our secretary gets them ready to go. And that way everybody in this school has the opportunity to understand what the decisions that have been made are. Any questions about our leadership team? Now, that's a success. There are some things that we still need to work on. And I'm going to give the floor to Ms. Schaefer for a minute, because this is an initiative that seems to be very near to her heart, and I think she's going to take leadership on.
Coming from Hinton Area Elementary to transfer down here, I was a big part of the Leader in Me program. I was the Lighthouse coordinator for many years. And one thing with that program that really was one of my favorite parts was to take the leadership team and divide them into subcommittees. And of course, with the Leader in Me, you have your culture, your academic, and you have your student leadership. So we're taking that concept for here and having our leadership team, we're going to divide into subcommittees. And this is still in the works. And so we're looking at for academics, for student learning. So then our culture, to have a clear and focused mission, our student environment, our school environment. Another one is our instruction, how we support students through learning. So taking our leadership team and working toward our strengths. So for instance, I love student learning, and with designing lessons, that's something that I like to do. So what we'll do is we'll divide up the leadership team into smaller teams. Then those smaller teams will work with different staff members for something that they find interesting, that they want to work on to, where everyone has a voice in our school improvement. It's not just coming from the principals, the academic coach, the leadership team. We have 6 through 8 working, we have 9 through 12 working, and we're all working together. So the goal is to be part of the solution and to take proactive steps where we're looking at, this is the things we want to change, and this is how we think we're going to do it. We develop a plan, see how it works, go back, what's working, what's not, how we start every meeting. Let's go back and fix what's not working. Let's try something different, to where we're all working together. So when we divide into subcommittees, that's what we mean by that, where we're working for something that goes with our interests and what we are passionate about.
Come back here. So along with our subcommittees, and one of those things that the subcommittees will look at, and then the leadership team as a whole, is our school's mission, vision, and goals. We have one. We have a mission statement. It's rather long. It's rather cumbersome, and most people don't know it. In fact, I probably couldn't tell you every word in it, but we have one. But it's not what we need it to be. It was adopted from Summers County High School. It is not one that is a Summers County Comprehensive High School. So we are looking at a book, we're reading the book, and it's in your packet, What Effective Schools Do. And that book is based on, or that's the wrong way to look at that. West Virginia manages or rates our schools based on 7 effective standards for schools. So those come from that book. And we are, as a school, we are reading that in our PLCs. We're going chapter by chapter. Some PLCs are further along in it than others, and that's okay. And that's kind of based on when we've been able to schedule those meetings and make those happen. But one of the themes, if you get into that book, one of the things you're going to see is a belief in learning for all. That's one of the pervasive themes in that book. The idea that you got to walk in that classroom and believe that every kid is going to learn. We can't walk into the classroom and say, that kid has always struggled, that kid is never going to get it. You have to walk in and you have to believe that no matter what you do, that you're going to get to that kid and that you're going to reach that kid and help that kid achieve. I have seen a school adopt that mindset, and I have seen scores raise by starting in that mindset. That mindset wasn't everything, but I've seen it happen. That's the goal here, is to get us into that mindset and really understand. So once we get a little further along in the book, we're going to start looking at our mission and our vision statements, and then we'll develop goals to support those. And again, it's one that is reflective of a 6-12 school, not a 9-12 or a 6-8. So we also need to look at our handbook. Right now, the handbook we have is more or less mirrored on the 9-12 school, not the 6-8. So when it revised student handbooks, there's a reason why it says that, because next year we will have a handbook for grades 6 through 8, and we will have one for grades 9 through 12. And so that's something that we are going to work on this year, is we're going to, before we leave here for the summer, we're going to have 2 handbooks ready to go. And that's going to come, part of that is going to be our PPIS system. Right now we have facets of it, we have pieces. We have, and in your packet as we go through, you'll find expectations for how you behave through all areas of the building. We teach them, we retrain. There is a reward system, it's an incentive system. Our high school advisory program in particular is kind of heavy in that. So we have pieces, but we need to have a comprehensive system. Right now we use attend, behave, perform. That is a 9-12 relic, more or less. It's working, it's getting us through this year, and that's kind of that was kind of the goal for the year, is to get us stable, have a healthy foundation from which to jump from for the next year. We've done that, but next year we will, at the end of this current semester, we'll have a PBIS framework that is reflective of this entire building and that is comprehensive, that we're not just pulling pieces here and there. So that's something that we are working on, and those are some sample subcommittees that we would like to have in addition to what Ms. Schaefer has talked about. Any questions about where we want to go with our structure? Okay. Yes.
One request, and this is a personal thing for me. If some of the acronyms, we could just spell them out for the lay
Yes.
people.
Yes, we will do that. So positive behavior interventions and supports. Basically, it's a behavior modification program to teach students a set of expectations and to support them in achieving those expectations. And one of the things we have are, this is how you behave in this location. Like, this is how you behave in the hallways. This is how you behave in the classroom. You know, you walk on the right side of the hallway, you walk on the blue line. I explain to the kids all the time when we have to teach these behaviors, listen, I understand, but we're in a building that was not designed to house 2 schools right now, so we're gonna have to make it work. So you're gonna have to live on that blue line getting in the hallway, because we gotta have both flows of ways of traffic going down each hallway. I try to just get real honest with them about it. Those are some things that PBIS does, and we're implementing pieces of it, but we need to do a whole system. And so our system is attend, perform, behave. So you attend school regularly, you perform, you do the work you're supposed to do, you meet the expectation, and behave as you are asked to do in different areas. So another goal we had, clear administrative duties. And so the staff understands who to go for what issues. So when designing the administrative duties, the goal was we focus on the whole child. Before, we had somebody doing attendance, somebody doing special ed, somebody doing discipline, or a couple people did discipline. There wasn't really a whole lot of understanding about who to go for what. And you might have 4 or 5 people that is trying to triangulate what's going to happen for this kid. That wasn't working for that. So when the administrative duties were decided, the goal was that there was one administrator who was responsible for that kid. You're responsible for their academics, their attendance, and their behavior. So make sure that you understand what's going on with that child. That is the goal. Now, I'm not going to say that some people haven't had to learn different strengths and weaknesses, because that's normal, and that happens when you become an administrator. Because before you're in a classroom, you have certain things that are strengths and certain things that are weaknesses that you don't know. Personally, coming from a general ed background, special ed wasn't my strong suit at the beginning. Now, having years of experience, I feel pretty comfortable in that. So we've had to learn, but these are our duties and they're clear. This is an excerpt from our faculty handbook. So these teachers know who to go for what. So if a teacher primarily teaches a 6-8, then they go to Miss Berkshire, and she's the one that does their walkthroughs, has those feedback conversations, provides suggestions, and so on and so forth. And I like things to be exactly clear. So there's a chain of command, and everybody understands what the process is going forward. So I think that's been kind of a success, because the staff know who they're going to who to go to. They know who to talk to for a particular student's issues. They know who their first point of contact is going to be. Now, like I said, there's always work to be done, and there are some strengths that we have. We need to continue working as a team to continue to grow closer. I mean, I wasn't here when either of those 2 got here, and they weren't here when I was here, and so we've had to, over the course of the semester, learn how each other operates and work to really build that professional relationship. And part of that is clear communication. What works for somebody in one building may not work in another building. And so one of the things we do, and we've tried all year, I will say more in the second 9 weeks, we've had more success of having scheduled, we hold these at this time, weekly meetings, and in your packet, you have excerpts from, or minutes from those meetings, so you can see the topics that we talk about and some decisions that are made. And again, the first thing we start with, what's working, what's not working. I just start every meeting that way. And then we go from there. And we need to continue doing that. And as we do those more frequently, more regularly, like I said, we've been pretty good about it more towards the end of the second 9 weeks. As we continue to do that, we're going to be a stronger team, which is necessary to support our teachers and continue the growth. We've done a lot, but the more that we grow together, the better off we are to support each teacher and staff member that's in this building. And I talked about strengths and weaknesses. Again, we all have them. We all have them. So an example I use today, because we were discussing this as a team this afternoon, we were discussing this presentation. I gave an example of CTE. That is one of my duties. When I was here the first time, I scheduled CTE. I built the master schedule for that, and I helped the counselors put kids where they needed to be in programs, but I didn't do a lot of the day-to-day managing of CTE. So that's been a growth area for me. That's been something I've had to learn. I've had to lean on other people to get the information I need. So that was an example. Like that's an example I used today during our meeting. But each of us have areas of strength and weakness, and that part of growing in those areas is relying on the other one to kind of be maybe the expert in that and to go to them when there's support or seeking out other individuals who can continue to provide us that support. And then the last one is to be proactive instead of reactive. And that's building the systems in place. So, and one example would be students just randomly coming to the office. We can't put out every fire. We can't fix every problem for every individual. They have to figure out how to do that themselves. We have to give them the tools and the opportunities to do that. And that's something that we are going to work on. We're going to continue to work on. And it's going to be a big rock, is being proactive instead of reactive, which is going to build those systems and enforce those systems. Any questions about goals, duties, before I move on? So, for part of walkthrough system that provides meaningful feedback. Again, out of all this, this is probably, when we get down to it in application and implementation, this is the biggest piece. So, our walkthrough model is that the teachers that are assigned to us, we go through at least once a week to do a walkthrough and to look at our big county targets, really. What are our students supposed to be learning that day? Is that tied to the standards? And our teachers checking to understand the standard if students are grasping the concept. Those are the big things we're looking for when we walk into the classroom. And we go through once a week, but then as months will allow, now like November, December, and well, now January, because of the breaks and snow breaks, if you will, it's not having 2 10-minute meetings per teacher a month is not really feasible at this time. So it's one. But at least once a month, each teacher has a one-on-one conversation with their designated administrator to talk about what they're doing well, what was going well in the walkthrough that we observed, and things that we can improve on, and how we can better meet those county expectations. Now, our 10-minute meetings, they follow a standard. We want to know, standard. We want to know what the content standard is you're looking at. We want to know what the learning target is. So what do you want them to know? And the 4 questions. And it's specifically, when they left that day, what do you want them to know from that lesson? How did you know if they knew it? What type of assessment did you give? Did you use observation? Did you use a quiz? Was there some sort of activity? What was it? Then what did you do if they knew it? So that's great. They understood it, but how did you go deeper? How did you continue to enrich the students' academic experience in that lesson? Did you know they got it and they just got to sit there for 15 minutes? Or was there something else that they could do that builds on that or move to the next skill? But then, just as important, what did you do if they didn't know it? Because it's not enough just to walk up in the room, teach the lesson, and then walk out. And they got it, they didn't, they didn't. That's not enough. So these are reflective questions, and the more we do these things, the more we're going to see our lessons become more standards aligned, more rigorous, and we're better meeting the needs of our students. There was supposed to be a 10-minute meeting template, but I just realized it's not in there. So, but that's pretty much it. That's the standard. Those are the questions that I've given the assistant principals to ask in their 10-minute meeting conversations. So, any questions on walkthroughs and how we're moving forward in that direction? Okay. So, work to be done. We need to continue to perfect our system. Teachers need to get used to it. That the more we do it, the more regular it is. The more like they just come. They just come with the knowledge. For example, when I use this model of jumping branch, after 2 years, when I said there's a 10-minute meeting, those teachers just walked in the room. They knew the standards. They had evidence. They ran the meetings were pretty much conducted by teachers really, and I almost had to like cut them off because it's 10 minutes. You only get a certain amount of planning time. I don't want to take any more than that. It's not fair. So like I kind of like, let's get to the point because you got to get back and take care of other things. We need to, as a leadership team and our admin team, in our meetings, we need to look at the effectiveness and then make sure what we're doing is working, finalize the plan, and have it ready to go for the next school year. That is the goal. When we leave here in May, we know exactly what's going to happen when we come back in August. So when I come back in July, and then the other two administrators come back on board and Ms. Schaefer, we're just working to put those in place. We have the plans ready to go. We're just going to put the final steps in place for implementation. So, first was about structure, organization of our school. The second area is our school's culture. As I said before, we had to get to a place where we could have an environment that was conducive to learning. I can say very confidently that we have that. You walk down the hallway, they're not running down the halls. You walk into the classroom, for the most part, we still have pockets we're working on. There's no doubt about that. But the environment in the classroom is such that you can learn. There aren't announcements happening all day long. In fact, I probably scared some people because at the beginning of the year, they were kind of used to that, and I just went straight. I was like, we have dead time here. Unless it's like 5 minutes before lunch, in the first 5 minutes of the day, last 5 minutes of the day, we don't do announcements. For the most part, 95%, we're pretty successful with that. Even when we're trying to find kids, I'm like, go find them. Just go find them. We're not interrupting the learning of 650 other kids to go find the one. We're not going to do that. So, we have a system of high expectations to ensure transparency in decision making and to ensure an organized environment that allows for student achievement. Those are our goals for priorities 2 and 3. So some successes. This is kind of where that acronym came into place. Attend, perform, behave. We have a set of expectations, and it is in your handout. And it's just exactly how you behave where in what part of the building you're in. And I've given an example of how you walk down the hallway. We practice that a lot. Your son's probably come home and said, Mom, we've had to go out and practice walking in the hallway. After every break, we go right back. In fact, for several of the breaks, I have suspended the advisory curriculum for that week, and I have told them, you take your advisory classes to these areas and you practice the expectations. Because you do it every day, it's fine, but you're out of school for a while, and you kind of go back to home rules, and that's okay, but you forget the school rules have to apply when you're here. So we practice those after every extended break. And again, that's one of our successful pieces of PBIS. So a comprehensive system of teaching and reteaching expectations. We started out the school day. I presented on this at our price meeting in December. Ms. Cox was very instrumental in getting this done. And well, in fact, she did the whole thing. She planned the whole thing. She brought it to my attention. We taught, students went to class one half of the day, and then they roamed the school learning expectations the other half of the day. And I say that because I didn't want to do that. I wanted them to just go straight to class. And Ms. Cox kept pushing me, and she was right. We needed to have that piece, and we do that all the time. It's been very successful. I think it kind of set a tone that things are different. This is how things are going to go. I think at day one, it just set the tone for the school year. And like I said, we reteach. But then the other one, and I have to give Miss Berkshire and Miss Cochran credit for this, their cafeteria procedures, our student ownership. When we came through, we had general expectations for how to behave in the cafeteria and how to operate, but they weren't really concrete, and there was still a lot of work needed to be done, particularly in the 6-8 lunch. It was a little rough. Dr. Holler, who's worked with us on classroom management and now is kind of working with us on instructional practices and intervention, he was observing one day and he was like, we got to fix these procedures. And he was absolutely correct. To be honest, I wasn't really sure exactly how to fix those procedures. And so Ms. Cochran and Ms. Berkshire sat down and they made a plan, and we have revisited it several times. Yeah. We've adjusted it, and one of the things we've done, they understand where you're supposed to sit, how you're supposed to empty your trash, and those types of things. That's worked very well. One of the things we had a struggle with was dismissal, because they would lunch, like the volume level immediately after putting it in got so much better. But we couldn't figure out dismissal, because as soon as they got up from the table and they went back to class, it's like everything just went out the door. We fixed that too. But another piece of it, and the one that came the most recently, is after our APL training. We had 2 days of APL training, and the presenter was talking about ownership and responsibility of the care of the school. The middle school, after the middle school lunch, or the 6-8 lunch, there's a lot of cleaning we had to do very quickly in between a 10-minute time span. The students now, they dump their own tray. The last person sitting at the table goes and gets the rag. They clean the table. They clean up after themselves, like anything they drop on the floor under their table, they clean that up. And that is part of how we dismiss. We go around, make sure they clean up after themselves. And once it's done, they line up by advisory, and then they head out the door. Much better. The cafeteria, you can almost can't even tell someone ate there that lunch. It's been wonderful. The custodian has been able to more or less go take care of other things that she needs to take care of during the day. It's because they clean up after themselves, and it's not them like clean after each other. Like, you made that mess, you're going to clean it up, and they do. It's gone much better. Coach Metter has really worked with us on developing a monthly attendance meetings. We have a set schedule for those. To improve our attendance, we have targeted intervention and monitoring by the administration. One of the things that 32% is not good. Chronic attendance is not good. I don't disagree with that. But last year, at the end of the year, it was 47%, which was down considerably from the year before that. So there's a lot of success there, but we're at 32.5%. We need to get it below 20. We will get there. We will get there. Maybe not this year, but we will get there. But the one thing that I find really comforting about 32.5% is that what we tend to see at the beginning of the year, your chronic attendance rate is higher than the end of the year, because it's based on 10% of the days enrolled in the school. So first 9 weeks, 10% is 4.5 days. And so you round that down to about 4, and that's kind of where you are. Well, that's only 4 days. Well, if you get sick, COVID, flu, whatever, break an arm, you're going to be out, 5 days or more. Well, bam, you're already chronically absent at the end of the second 9 weeks. But as you go and you keep adding days to the school year, the amount of days that you can be absent and not be considered chronically absent goes up, tremendously. So what we see as we go forward through the quarters, the chronic attendance rate decreases. So I feel comfortable now. we could get to the end of the year and something happen and that could go back up. I feel pretty confident that that number is going to decrease based on the trends that I've seen. So we're already at 32 from 47. I feel confident that we could get somewhere in the 20s before the end of the school year. Now, again, something could happen and I could be wrong, but I feel confident that that 32 is going to continue to decrease as we go along. Yes?
Do you all look at the chronic absence by 9-week periods too, just to compare and see, like, is that first 9 weeks more absences than, say, the third?
When we update that, go back to our strategic plan goals, when we do what's called progress notes, we look at that and that's something that we add in, like when we do them 4 times a year. And one of the things we look at is attendance. Like, this is where we are here, this is where we are now. And then goal 3 in this, and there are 3 goals, but this one's kind of pervasive through the whole system, is to ensure that shared decisions, we share decisions that are made, that staff understand why, and that's part of sending out of the leadership meetings to staff, and that they understand where we're going and why we're doing things. But I will also say that we use our handbook. It does need some adjustments, but fairness and consistency have to play a part. And so, for the most part, we adhere strictly to the disciplinary guidelines that we set forth, because we built the matrix based on West Virginia's policy of expected behaviors, but we build it and we apply. If it is your 5th time skipping class, this is the prescribed punishment. It doesn't matter who you are, any of that, this is what it is. Now, obviously the categories are very broad, and not every situation is black and white. So when we're handing out consequences, those things do have to be taken into account. But it lets students understand that no one is more important than another one. That if something happens, there's going to be a consequence. And we've had some pretty good successes. So work to be done. I've said this before, we need to develop a comprehensive PBIS plan. Before the snow came, last week, we were supposed to have a parent meeting, a meeting for a stakeholder meeting, let's call it that, for individuals who wanted to sit in and have input in our school's PBIS team. Obviously, that didn't get to happen, but I will reschedule that, and we will have that team, and they'll come and work with us, will work with us to build what our new acronym is going to be. Is it still going to be the current one? It could be if that's what the team decides, or do we change it to something else? I will say when I got here, we had ROAR and APB on the walls, and all the time I would be like, okay, which one are we doing? We got to figure it out here. So we're better than that. But we need to find one that is reflective. Now, again, like I said, we could stay with the one and tweak it and make it more reflective, or it's going to be a team decision. And then we'll build that program. But we also have a group of staff members that have been working with Marshall, and we'll go to a series of professional developments to build that team and those components. We have one middle school teacher, one high school teacher, and then Ms. Schaefer and myself will go. The team went to Wheeling this summer to kind of see how their high school did it and how they put it into place. And that brought some interesting ideas and kind of some understanding that maybe just because it's a conventional practice doesn't mean it's wrong, that we can still implement that. And we looked at some of the things that we were doing, and for me, I was like, oh, wait, we're already doing those things. And it kind of helped me make some connections. But through the semester, we're going to build that program. That's going to be a major sticking point. Continue to implement parts of APL with fidelity. At the end, I'll show you what we are doing. In your handout, there are some notes from APL. It's from day 2. These are just my notes that I made, but I kind of wanted you to see a little bit of what was discussed. And one of the things we're doing is a pass. Like if the student doesn't know it, we can pass it up to 2 times, and then we get the right answer. But each kid that passed it, they have to be paying attention, and when you go back, they have to be able to give you the right answer. So you're only off the hook temporarily. And again, can share decisions that are being made. Consistently doing that. So, to ensure an organized environment. Last year, some concerns, not all of our discipline referrals were being put into WEDIS. And so that was something that we have fixed. Unless it's a substitute teacher, the referrals are in WEDIS. They go directly in there. The teachers don't fill out a paper referral. So that's something we fixed very quickly, and we deal with those in a pretty timely fashion. Now, if there's snow days or whatever, sometimes that delays, but we get it as quick as we get to each incident as quickly as we absolutely can. There's an understanding of who processes the discipline. And again, it goes back to those administrative duties. Whoever it is, Ms. Berkshire does 6-8, Ms. Cochran does 9-11, I take 12. But number 3 is big because some days, well, most of the time, the seniors don't generally get written up for much. They just want to get here, get their work done, and go home. So what I do is I try to, particularly the middle school, because it's kind of heavier, or it was at the beginning of the year. I jump in and I help with the middle school discipline. Or if Ms. Cochran knows her load is kind of light that day, then she'll jump in and help. So yes, there is clear understanding of who's responsible for that kid, but we also need to get those discipline referrals processed. And so we just jump in the queue, so to speak, and we make that work. One of our LSIC members, Mr. Jones, he just stepped out. At the beginning of the year, we were talking about our goals. And I was like, well, I kind of expected discipline referrals to go up this year as opposed to go down. I was like, they're probably going to go up exponentially. He's like, I don't think that's going to happen. He's like, I think that they might actually go down. I completely disagree with him, but I will say, and here he comes back, Mr. Jones, you know how in September you told me you thought our discipline numbers would go down? Yes, sir. You were right. Just wanted you to know, you were right. I truly didn't think it was going to happen. It's about a 7% decrease right now, but I'll take it. Considering we know that everything is being put into WEVIS, I feel like that number is very accurate, and I'm kind of proud that that number has occurred. At the beginning of the year, I just saw the numbers kind of trending upwards, but I think after a while, the kids, they understood, like, you're going to have to get in line or we're going to have some issues here. And that's kind of fixed that. I hope that we can continue this trend and maybe decrease them a little bit more as we go through the year. And I think that is very possible. But it's not just been about consistent processing. We have had parent meetings. We put kids in the SAT process. We have done several things to meet the needs of the students that are not able to meet the behavioral expectations. We still have some issues we have really strong success with our referrals, but we still have some work to do. One of the biggest things right now that I'm kind of struggling with, and Coach Metter is working with me, is to have a system in place to get the students to class on time, a tardy tracker system that's kind of more effective than what we're using right now, which is like 1990s tardy slips. It's going real well. But that's still a struggle, and particularly on the high school side. Middle school, they just get to class, like they just go. High school, they as I said to some kids today, I need you to walk with a purpose. I need you to stop looking. It's where Andrea is. Like, I need you to stop looking at everything on the wall. I need you to get where you need to be. Like, let's go. It's right there. He'll take care of that. Then, so we're working on that. Several different fronts, but we still got to fix that. We got to build our PBI system, as I've said. We got to revise our discipline matrix. We've looked at it. As we implement it, like, it is what it is. We abide by it. We're like, this doesn't really make sense. We probably need to, as we build our handbook our 2 handbooks for the next year, we really need to look at that and go back to it. Continue to tackle the vaping issue. That's still a major issue that we have, and we got to continue to work with that. Officer Withrow has tried a community service program, like for first offenders. That does seem to be working, because whenever you bring them into the office and you're like, you call the parent, and because it's automatic ISS. So you're like, look, you go into ISS, but you have 2 choices. You can either have a citation for your first offense, or you can have 8 hours of community service. So when I'm on the phone with the parent, the kid immediately wants the citation. They're not going to pay it. The parents are going to pay it. But the parents on the phone, 99% of the time, community service. And they're like, how do we make that work? So I tell them, like, Officer Withrow will call to set that up. So that is having an effect for some of our students. But we still got to do more to tackle that issue.
That's still $250.
I don't know what the fine is. The parents have asked me that very same question. I'm like, you're going to have to talk to the officer. He can tell you exactly what the fine is. Any questions? All in all, I think we're moving on the big rocks that we focused on: organization, school culture this year. We've had major successes with that. And I think you've seen some examples in person. You see some data to back that up. So now we got to talk about our student support. How do we academically get them where they need to be? What are we doing for them to make sure if they don't know it? What are we going to do if they do know it as a school? So one of the things we've done is this year we've really worked on our SAT process, and right now we only have 19, but that's only 19 kids at the moment that the teachers have felt really need to be referred to this team. But this team has made some successes. Some of those 19 are parent meetings to get some of the behaviors down and to decrease the repeat offenders. It's been pretty successful so far. So 19, that is pretty good. Now, as we once we start digging into the semester grades and we look at, who's on the DF report, that number will most likely go up as we start looking at that data, and the administrators start really getting in there and be like, you know what, maybe this kid really does need to have a SAT referral, and we talk to the teachers. So that number will most likely increase, but I'm pretty confident in the work that we're doing with the SAT team. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Schaefer, who has kind of been really spearheading our student support and our intervention and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students.
You have a packet that looks like this. I want to go through quickly. This is a passion of mine, and so I can speak on it for hours. I promise not to. All right, so one of the weaknesses through our diagnostics, we didn't have an effective WVTSS, which is West Virginia Tier System of Support for our students. So I gave you just an overview here of what the tiered support is with our students. And you'll notice this wheel here where we talk about focusing on the whole child. And that is their behavior, their mental health, their academics, their attendance, everything. We look at everything with that child. And then we have different tiers. Everyone falls into the bottom tier, which is a universal tier. Then we have students who just need a little bit of temporary help, a little bit of targeted support. It's short, it's temporary to get them up. Then we have students who need a little bit more, and you'll notice as we build our triangle or our pyramid, it's less that need the tier 3. Then on the outside, it has what we do to create a plan, and that's what's in here for you. And I'm just going to go over it briefly. We are using for our intervention program, we are using IXL. So for the first semester, the staff and I worked together to create a form of how we're going to use IXL. In our strategic plan, the goal was, and you'll see it, it's on the bottom of this form, was to increase our year growth by 3%. So you're going to see that on all the forms. So what we did is when we gave our report, we looked at where all of our students fit. Are they in the red, the little red triangle, which is your intensive, your yellow, which is your targeted, and your green for your support. So we started with that. We looked at where our kids are when we're looking at our IXL. Then we looked at what percentage of our kids are not meeting that goal. So then what partially meets what meets. Then what do we want them to be? Then the next part was our action steps. What are we going to do to increase those numbers? So we wanted to give that time to work. A round of intervention is 9 weeks. Then 2 rounds is 18, which is a round of, pretty much a round of intervention it's completely 2 rounds for 18. So we gave that some time. Your next page that you have here is our second round, where we're looking at it. Okay, this is what we did the first time, what's working, what's not, so we made some changes. So you're going to notice here how it's changed, and we just made these changes. We're going to start this the second semester. So now we're still looking at our percentages here of our students that aren't meeting the goals. Then we're going to start working with those targeted students and our intensive students to get them to where we want them to be and we need them to be. So we have an intervention time built into our schedule in middle school. So we have teachers that want to work with groups of students throughout the week. So you'll see that listed here. Then we're going to use the data from IXL of what areas they're weak in. So we'll go this group, it will help us group. This group of 4 students really need work with this particular standard. So we'll work with those 4 together to get them where we need to be, if that makes sense. So we've created a plan, we've run it, we're looking at what worked, what didn't, what do we need to change, how can we make this better. Then our different tiers of the strategies we're going to use for our different tiers. So this is one of what we're using for our IXL plan. The next set that you see is our Cambian data. That is our benchmark data. And that is our end of year testing. So you'll notice they look quite similar. So we're looking who's not meeting their standards, who's are the little triangle, the 3 to 5%, partially meets. So we're looking at that. We're in the process of taking our second benchmark now. So I was hoping to have more data for you. We would have been just about been finished, but with the snow last week, we're about a week behind. So we're going to look at here what percentages of our students, where they currently at, where do we want them, and what steps are we going to priorities, and what are we going to do to get them where we need to be. Then we have the list of what we call, we're quote unquote the bubble kids, and that's the kids that are right below from where we need them to be to meet standards, or right above where they could still dip down a little bit. So we're really going to focus on working on those targeted skills. Then the next thing that you have is our IXL action plan, and we worked with Dr. Haller to create this. So we've set some goals for where students are now from the first semester, where we want them to be by the second semester. And you'll notice here on this next page, our action steps. This is what we're going to do to move those kids from where we need them to be. Who's doing it, what we're doing, who's responsible for that. And that's just creating that action plan here in the WBTSS. And that's just the circle around here where you define your problem, you work up a solution, you implement it, you give it some time, you look at it again, what's working, what's not. You make those changes, and you'll see the changes that we're making. Then we're going to continue to do that. One of the things that we're finding that we're really struggling with is finding time for our intensive students who need that extra help
according to the WBTSS policy, they need 30 to 60 minutes, 5 days a week. We're not finding, we have not found the time for that. We're working on it. We're getting them the 30 to 60 minutes once a week. So what we're looking at is to change our after-school program and through the 21st Century Grant. So we're meeting this week to see if we can change it up. The good thing is I have staff that's wanting to work, but with the grant, with that 21st Century Grant, you have to have so many kids per teacher. And it was 16 to 1, but now that they've let us move to 10 to 1. But for our students who need that tier 3 intervention, it recommends 3 to 5 kids. Well, with our grant, that's something that we're not allowed to do. The good news is I have the staff that want to work it, but the bad news is because of the way it's funded, we can't. So we're working together as a county and using different funding sources to look at how we're going to hire our people and to get them to where they work with that intensive interventionist. We bring in the programs, we look at the areas they're weak in. Through that grant, I have funding that I can buy we can purchase programs, and they're asking me, you need to purchase some programs. I'm getting there, just we're moving that way and for what we need. And they're people from the grant and the State Department, they're really working with us, and we have a meeting scheduled at 10 o'clock on Thursday with everyone that's working with this. So we're going to make it happen. And we've faced some challenges. We've done some things wrong, and we went back and we've looked. We'll just keep refining. We're going to keep working at it till we get it right. There's really not a great intervention model in the state. So my goal is, and our goal is, we want this to be the intervention model that people come to see. And we're going to figure it out. Yes, ma'am?
The kids that are identified as the high-level intervention, will they be required to attend the after-school training?
No.
After school, or will it just be optional?
It's optional for after school. We're tossing around ideas. One of the things that some of the staff members has thought about is whenever the kids get here off the bus in the morning, they go to the gym or the cafeteria, and they're sitting for 20 minutes. If we have someone who could pull them for that 20 minutes to give them that intensive. That's an idea that we have. We're brainstorming. We're trying to think creatively in ways that it's never been done before.
People that are willing to engage.
Yes, I have a lot that are willing to work that I'm having to send home every day because our numbers, the numbers that are staying right now with the weather and stuff, and I had to send 3 home today.
The good news is the State Department's pretty happy with our after-school program for not only here, but the elementaries. But the problem you get into is sometimes there's strings attached.
Yeah.
And so we're asking, can we cut a couple of strings if we do it like this? And Christy's done a great job with her leadership to manipulate them. In a good way, don't get me wrong.
No, when I explained what our need is, this is what our students need. And we're struggling to find it, and I think this is a way that we can make this work. And from the State Department to the secondary education, I can't think of their SEEC, they're out of Beckley. They're like, they're like, I see what you're saying. I see what you need. I think we can make this work. They'll still part of the program. They'll work with an interventionist. Then they'll go to our STEM program. Then they'll go to our physical activities and things that they need. So we're really meeting those kids' needs by taking a step back, taking a look, and just refocusing the way we're thinking, approaching it from a different viewpoint. So the staff's been wonderful for that. Great ideas.
It's a real bummer that there's not some type of Title I for middle and high school to assist in that way.
Yeah. So, and while right now the high school is a Title I program, we can't find an interventionist, to hire someone to come in to do that. The elementary school has them, we posted them in the past and it's just no one has really stepped up. But the good news is we have teachers here that are willing to do it after school hours and are willing to go for more training and more specific programs for what our students need. We're just having to hit it from a different view.
So what's the participation rate of the students who are that tier 3 that are participating in the after school?
This evening, we had 6 students stay. We have 2 different programs that are going on. There is an enrichment program with Mrs. Duffield's. She had 12 this evening. We had 6 this evening where we're 10 to 1. I stepped back and as coordinator, I have a co-coordinator. So she stepped in as coordinator and we had another one of our team members come in. So they're working together. One of the things that we're doing to make our after school right now, about all I can offer is homework helper, because with the numbers, I can have 1 teacher. And I go in, once I get all my paperwork done and all my attendance in, and we're speaking with the students one-on-one, we're pulling their grades. What assignments are you missing? What homework do you have? You're on iExcel. Are you sitting there? Are you working? There's reports that I pulled. You maybe have been on it an hour, but you worked 6 minutes. So holding those students accountable, and they know we're communicating with families, bringing families in. One of the things we're getting ready to start doing is data talks with our 6th and 7th grade. This is where your benchmark, this is what this means. This is where you scored. This is where you scored here. This is what this means. When we do look at their end of their year testing from last year, how everything aligns, to really make sure that students understand it, then our goal, and I think our date is February 15th, is we're going to have student-led conferences for 6th and 7th grade where the families come in and we're pairing up with Gear Up, the after-school program. We're trying to make sure we're using all of our programs to where we're interlocking, to where they're supporting one another, to have a parent night where parents come in and the kids are explaining their learning and what this means. This is what this means on this chart. When I'm scoring at 480, this is what 480 means. This is where I'm at.
So out of those 6 to 10 kids that are coming to after school,
Mm-hmm.
how much of that is our tier 3 kids?
We have, I'm going to say probably right now, 80 to 85% are our tier 3. Every day I've got students coming and teachers coming with the student needs help picking up applications. I had some today. My goal is to work myself out of my summer job to where we don't need the credit recovery. We don't need that. We want to make one of our sections credit recovery. That's one of our goals, to where in the summer they pay. Now, this time of the year, the county is helping with that. I've got teachers that are willing to come in and do that. We just got to get the kids. So one of the things when we pull the DF reports is through middle school, high school, one of the goals from the after school team that's working, there are 6 of us. So we want to start calling those families. Let us help you. This is how we can help you. We want to provide that support. And we've got the people to do it. We just need the kids. So we're working on growing those numbers and getting those kids. You're welcome.
And I for one, would like to come to those student-led conferences.
I'm going to be sending an invite. Wonderful.
Thank you, because I would like to hear from the students.
One of the things that
They're going later.
one of the things that we want to do for our families that don't come is we're wanting to ask our directors, we're wanting to ask principals, we're wanting to ask counselors, board members, for those who didn't have families to come, that they wanted to come in and talk about their data, to sit down and let the kids, to where we can provide that experience if the families can't come, and give the kids that experience. So that's what we're working toward. We, like Dr. Green said, we're working, we're adjusting. We've had growing pains, and I make more mistakes than most people, but that's just me. I say I'm sorry a lot, and I'll do better next time, and I do.
So in addition to that, just real quickly, we want to make sure our kids, our special ed students are where they need to be in the right classes. And so as we look at grades and on a case-by-case basis, we're reviewing, and we found issues where we need to put a kid in either direct service or maybe move them to co-teach. We're still working on that, and we'll get more of that in the spring when we get into IEP season. Talk about clubs, middle school student council. Middle school finally has a student council. The goal is to bring the 9-12 and the 6-8 councils together to meet with the administration. And in fact, that is that's the work to be done. So Ms. Schaefer's talked about those. The last piece is instruction. And the goal is to provide a standards-based curriculum, ensure the use of high-yield instructional strategies, and provide a rigorous education that ensures student engagement. So I'll go through these quickly. This is just some walkthrough. This is some data from our walkthrough. Standards posted in the room, 70%, 72% of our walkthroughs to date have had standards posted. Learning targets are posted. Frequent use of checks for understanding, 82.5%. Obviously, there's room for growth, but that's a good place to start from. The follow-up questions to that are going to be making sure that the instructional activities are really tied to the standard. Is the learning target really tied? Those are things we have in our follow-up 10-minute meetings. APL training, PLCs. You have an example of PLC minutes in your packet. We do two types of PLCs: grade levels, which we focus on the individual students. So, all the students that have that one particular kid, or all the teachers that have the one particular student, can get together and discuss trends that they're seeing and to support those. Those meet once a month. Then we have subject level teams, and the core subject levels meet twice a month. And we focus on school improvement. We talk about that book. We are moving to talk about standards and instruction. And we still have some work to be done. The first part of this year is all about the culture, all about the structure, getting us a foundation. The second part of this year is going to be improving our instruction, strengthening it. You have documents in your packet. I have given them to you before when I was the principal at Jumping Branch. These are the things that we used when I was there. They work. Our scores improved there. Our instruction improved there. We're going to use them here. They work. So you have assessing assessments. That's going to be our first step. Is we're going to look at our assessments and make sure that what we're assessing is based on the standards. Is it to the level of the standard? Like, it's one thing to discuss vocabulary. It's another to analyze it. What does the standard say? That was something that was on our diagnostic too. The level of instruction didn't always necessarily meet the demand. That's where we're going. That's where we're moving. APL, you've got minutes from our PLCs. This is where we're working. Right now, we're going to assess the assessments. That's where we're starting. That lets us look at standards. That lets us look at the OK levels to make sure that we're teaching at a level that's really encouraging student engagement and critical thinking. And then finally, the last piece here will be mastery matrices, in that this backwards design, in that you take the standard, you design the assessment to reflect the standard, and then you design your instruction so that it scaffolds to allow students to achieve that, whatever that assessment is you gave, to meet that standard. So you have pieces of those in your packet. That's where we're going. That's the second semester. We're at a good place. We're better than where I thought we would be at this point. I'm going to be honest. Now we can really get down to what I really enjoy, which is going in the classrooms, talking about instruction and moving kids forward academically. So one thing I want to leave you on is just a clip from, we are rolling out that pass that I talked about. We're rolling that piece out with APL. And I just wanted to give you that, what that looks like.
What property are we updating for the brush?
I'm gonna pass to Dylan.
Dylan, on line 12, what property are we updating for the brush? Jacob, what property are we updating for the brush on line 12?
.x.
Very good, the .x property. Dylan, what property are we updating? Very good. Amaya, what property are we updating?
The .x property.
Very good.
So that was a long bit of information, but I felt like you needed to understand exactly where we were, where we're going, and what we still have to do. Are there any questions about anything that we've discussed this evening? Here. All right. That being said, I thank you for your time and your support, and I'll hand it back to you all.
I think we're good. Sure. Oh, real quick, if anybody wants to have some board meeting tonight, I'll be glad to take you on a tour of the middle school addition. If you guys want to see it, I can show you. It won't take that long, but if you want to see that, I'll be glad to take you over there, and your feet will not get muddy, I promise you.
All right, item 13, point of privilege. We're starting here at the table with Mrs. Harden.
So I am glad that we are putting a levy out for both. And I realize that it may be a boulder to push uphill, being that it's been nearly 40 years since the last one passed. And I'm hopeful that our community, our parents, our staff will come out and support the kids in what has been put forth. I do wish that we had done as we had talked about leading up to today, to go out to the community and to hold town halls, and that's, you know what, that's on us. And so we hope that what's out there does fit the needs. And Ms. Cameron's presentation earlier, we do plan to have some informational pieces to put out there so that the voters understand what, in layman's terms, what's going out there. I would also like to thank Mr. Jones. Ever since he has stepped into this role, every time I see him outside of the classroom environment, he is always first to come up to me and shake my hand with a smile and just tell me very happily what he's either planned for the class, what they're currently doing, and I greatly appreciate that enthusiasm. You don't have to be doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you stepping into the role that we needed to fill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce?
I was going to use my point of privilege to just get some updates on a few things, if I might. First thing I'd like to ask about is where we are with the parking lot at the elementary school. Is that being put into the Board of Education's possession? I just wonder where we're at on that.
I'll have Chad give you an update at the next board meeting.
Okay.
That would be good.
Good on that. We hired a company back in October to run surveys for us, and we still don't have a survey out to my knowledge. Just wondering where we are on that.
What I left you guys with questions, I haven't received any feedback. If that's the kind of questions you want to go out, so I know what you all want. I don't know what else to give them other than what I've given you guys, and I think either we'll have to do a work session or try to have you guys designate at least one or two people to say, this is the questions, because I need it vetted through you guys to see what you all want. We will have surveys that will be given to 3 of our schools because they're CSI schools already. That survey will be that tight, but the survey for all staff, if you guys can let me know what you want, I've given you
quite a few questions. I don't know if you want to ask all those. I don't know if you want to use any of them, but that was a starting point for you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
I just don't want that to go to sleep. And finally, like tonight, we were presented with an opportunity to spend, I think it was $27,000 of the ARP money. I just wonder if we can find out exactly how much of that is left and how much is already encumbered. Do we have a plan going forward as how it's going to be spent?
At the next board meeting, I'm gonna vote on budget update for everything throughout the county, since we're about halfway through the year. So that'll be part of that.
Well,
I didn't want to tack it onto this evening with all the LSIC and stuff.
I stepped on all kinds of stuff that we're just right on the edge of, didn't I? All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. McBride?
Well, since the levy's been covered, I'd like to commend the administration here at Summers County Comprehensive High School, the team leaders, and the staff for their willingness to make the changes that were difficult to make this year. And it hasn't gone unnoticed. And thank you very much. And I'm sure the rest of these board members feel the same way. So thank you, and wish you continued success.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. I just want to make a few comments on the presentation, the LSIC presentation. So I heard a couple mentions of Dr. Holler with the APL training. I know that's one of the things that was requested by staff members, that we have APL training. So it's good to know that what we as a board approved is working. It's always good to get that feedback. We approve a lot of spending on funds, and sometimes we don't know if it's working or not. So that was good to hear. And then the robotics team, those kids talking about using Python. That's kind of where I'm, as far as my employment goes, we work with that. So it's encouraging to hear that. I remember when I was in high school, I took basic computer programming, and it was a pretty big class, but that's all they had was basic. And so the second year, when I wanted to take computer programming, there was no one to teach it. And the teacher that taught basic told me, she said, I'll let you do a self-taught class if you want to do that. And it was Pascal. Like, oh, wow. So I took it, taught myself the best I could. But, that's always been something that I've enjoyed working with. So it was good to hear those kids expanding that knowledge there. And then I saw on your handout for the clubs, the fishing club. That's been something that has been asked of me by another community individual, why we don't have a fishing club. And now I can go back to them and say, we do have a fishing club. And I saw that you were looking for other sponsors. Now, it's not necessarily a sponsor, but he might be willing to be a volunteer to assist with that. And when he and I talked about that, he said, why don't we have a fishing club? Because we have all the rivers, the lakes. He said, Bass Lake's right over here. He said it would be a perfect opportunity. And my understanding is Liberty High School, and I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is Liberty High School has a fishing club, and they compete in tournaments.
It probably is.
So I have been, in the meantime, trying to find out information about that, unbeknownst that we have a fishing club. So hopefully, maybe if you have any contacts at Liberty, you could reach out to them and see if they can give you any information.
Try to get funding for a ranger.
Yeah. And then the last thing I want to say, Mr. Warble asked me to, if I wanted to participate in the Willow Bend Farm endeavor. I never really said yes or no to him because I've got so much on my plate right now, but he sent me the invite to the last meeting.
You were willing hostage.
I did join that meeting, and so there was a lot of conversation about how that farm's going to be ran, prescribed grazing versus raising and selling hay off of that. So there was a lot of conversation taking place on how that was going to be ran, whether they're going to rent the farmhouse, employment for that farm. So it's interesting to see this kind of take shape. I'm sure there's going to be some bumps along the way as it comes into fruition, but it's going to be a great learning opportunity for our students and students of surrounding counties. And actually, I have the opportunity to join some of our students February 1st at a sheep shearing, and they're going to be testing sheep for worms as well. So I've been asked to chaperone that trip, so I'm going to get to join them, and I'm just hoping that we have some of this milder weather now and not weather like last week.
Yeah.
That's all I have for point of privilege, so thank you all for your comments as well. Item 14, discussion of next agenda. The next meeting will be February 13th, 5 p.m., Summers County School Central Office. And then we have future LSIC meetings, so the second meeting of each month moving forward will be an LSIC meeting. The first one, February 27th at Jumping Branch. I'm sorry, at Hinton Area Elementary. March 26th at Jumping Branch, and then April 23rd at Talcott. Any other items to add to the agenda?
This is not necessarily to add to the agenda, but Ms. Harvey and Mr. McBride were the two previous people to work with Mr. Orville on the survey. And I just asked both of them. They're still willing, so if you guys can just get together soon and make that
something
happen.
that I was thinking about when you asked about that, Mr. Bergen. So my recollection from when the presentation was given is that she said questions were already in the system and they could be selected. So some of those questions, I don't know if you all logged into that.
I have one time. She basically said, if we need help, that's what I'd rather, they just tell us what's work, because I don't want to recreate anything.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking,
fine
is
with it.
if you guys can get, if you all are still willing to work on it and you all can get together.
I can see
maybe
if she
set
can
an
team in
appointment
with
her.
us, yeah.
So that was something that
Okay.
crossed my mind when you were asking earlier, Kenny. And then we're gonna have the code funds or the art money on the next agenda, parking lot information on the next agenda. If you all have any other items you'd like to add, reach out to Mr. Wardle or myself.
And the budget update, right?
Budget, well, yeah.
Okay. I
Budget,
just want-
that code funds are.
Okay,
that's what I was
sorry.
thinking.
Well, I just know Mr.
Yeah.
Rogan likes budget updates. He gets excited.
All right,
Have that
so
caramel.
we are at item 15, Mr. McBride.
I make a motion, we adjourn, the time is 7:11.
Thank you, sir.